Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Thursday noontime edition of the New Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're making your way through the week, as are we. Thanks for being here today. I put some curtains up in the office here. And by curtains, I mean I used some push pins to fasten some blankets to the wall. I got to get blackout curtains, but he's been
really you've been really upset about looking washed out and pasty.
I mean, look, I am a very fair-skinned individual. You know, I'd make a great prince in the next Snow White when they go back to making unwoke Snow White movies. I think I have the perfect complexion for the heroic prince.
Well, I don't think the prince has to be pasty, just Snow White.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so.
They should have gone that way. They should have made it a parable of miscegenation.
But wasn't
the made him very swarthy and her like porcelain skinned?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the whole point of it is that, I mean, I thought the whole defense of the traditional Snow White was not that it's, exclusionary in that way, but that it takes place in a land of whites, right? So if the fairest lady of them all has the fairest skin, then it makes sense that the hero prince would also have fair skin. He probably wouldn't be Jewish, though. I doubt there'd be a Jewish prince.
Probably not. Probably
yeah, see, that
not.
I really can't do anything about.
Look, I would come to rescue you, but my back is terrible.
It's so
threw
far.
It out.
The mountains.
I was fighting a dragon. I can't,
can't
get out of bed ever since.
It's so hilly.
Well, the reason pale skin was an ideal was it meant you didn't have to work in the fields. You were nobility.
Right.
If you had pale skin.
Right. Exactly. So, I fit, one of the two criteria, I guess. But hey, thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate that very much. What's going on with this camera? Come on, point down. There we go. We are in for a good time today. I will be appearing on The Homeless Left with our friend Matt Weinglass at 4 p.m. Eastern, so about an hour after we wrap here. And so if you miss me after 30 minutes, because we are off for the next 2 days, so if you don't want to say goodbye for 2.5 full days, you can catch me over there. They're on Rumble only. That's one of the reasons I'm doing it. I mean, obviously, I like Matt a lot. He's cool. But I like supporting the Rumble creators. And Matt is off YouTube, and he's on Rumble. So you got to go to the Homeless Left Rumble channel.
Did he get kicked off, or that's just...
Yeah, no, he got kicked off.
Really?
Off. Yeah.
Yeah, I met him in D.C.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a good dude. And he does a good show. They get a good crowd, so it'll be fun.
Tomorrow I will be seeing Glenn Ross, so you can let me know in the comments what you want me to scream at Bill Burr in the middle of the performance.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I'm gonna go full Jose.
Gonna go Jose
on his ass.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that should be fun. That should be a great show. Reviews are good. I was talking to Russ. I want to do that as a movie night. I think that would be a really fun and great movie night. Since that has a lot of themes of business and finance and backstabbery, and that movie, just like the play, just like so much of Mamet's best stuff. You know, Mamet's written a lot. He's written a lot of not so great stuff, but he's written some masterpieces. And the best of Mamet is just comfort food. It's mac and cheese. It's pizza. I could watch Glenn Ross over and over again every day. I wouldn't get tired of it. The film version of American Buffalo, same thing. I could watch American Buffalo over and over again, never get tired of it. So I think that would be a really, really fun movie night.
Well, just by accident, David Mamet. So, I'm growing up in this kind of, rough neighborhood, and I'm into the performing arts. And I didn't even know they wrote plays like the people I knew. I stumbled on Glenn Ross at the library.
Right.
And I was like, oh, there are plays where people talk like that.
Right.
I didn't know there were. I was like 13.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I love that play. I love American Buffalo. His best stuff is just it's so watchable and so fun, and I'm sure that's a great production. They do that play like every 10 years on Broadway. It gets like another revival because it's so good. All right.
That's a great cast for that.
It is. Yes. My friend
who's playing Roma? Is Burr playing Roma?
No, he has. I believe Burr is playing. I forget who the name of the character is. I think Burr is playing the Ed Harris role in the movie.
Okay.
And Roma is Kieran Culkin, which seems kind of odd because he doesn't.
That is odd. If anything, you'd give that more to Burr. Right.
Yeah, but my friend Justin saw it. He said the Kieran Culkin bit was a little off. He said everything else was great. Odenkirk is the Jack Lemmon. Odenkirk is Shelley.
That's what I would have guessed.
Yeah, but then the Bill Burr, the Ed Harris role. I forget the name of the guy. He has like a great exit monologue that is perfect for Bill Burr. I mean, he will. I guarantee he gets an ovation for that when he says it. That's like late second act. That might even be his exit for the play. I don't know if he's even in it past that point. But yeah, I mean, I would love to do that for a movie night. As you can see, we're talking about it now. So that's a strong candidate. That's the front runner for this month, since that is kind of in the zeitgeist now because of the Burr performance. So, all right, folks. Well, hey, strap in. We are in for a fun afternoon here. So thanks very much for being here. 888 strong in the YouTube chat to start things out. 407 strong in the Rumble chat. Smash that like button, please, so we get an even bigger crowd in here. And let's get started. All right, folks. So we have been following the deportations pretty closely. Seems like at least one segment per show for as far back as we can remember, unfortunately. Has been devoted to these deportations. Well, there's now a report saying about 90%, that's right, 90% of migrants sent to El Salvador lacked U.S. criminal record. That's right.
They were just going after the criminals first.
Just the criminals. That's right. Trump administration officials have described the men deported to El Salvador prisons last month as, quote, the worst of the worst, suggesting they were gang members involved in murder, assault, shall we say, and kidnapping. The reality is that of 238 migrants, mostly Venezuelan, not El Salvadoran, notably, that officials accused of belonging to the Tren de Aragua gang and expelled to the Central American country in mid-March, just a small fraction had ever been charged with serious crimes in the U.S. Hundreds of pages of U.S. legal records and American government statements reviewed by Bloomberg News found 5 men charged with or convicted of felony assault or firearms violations. 3 men were charged with misdemeanors, including harassment and petty theft. 2 others were charged with human smuggling. For the rest of the men, there was no available information showing they committed any crime other than traffic or immigration violations in the United States. So there is a graphic representation of what they're talking about here. No charges found for the overwhelming majority of deportees to El Salvador's torture prison. Now, 60 Minutes did a segment. They did their own investigation, which we'd have loved to have featured. But, I can't find the video anywhere. And if I could, they are real copyright pains in the ass. So they do write about it a bit here in the Bloomberg piece. A CBS News investigation found that 3/4 of the men sent to El Salvador couldn't be connected with a U.S. or international criminal record. So not just American criminal record, but any international criminal record. Now, Bloomberg's review of court cases and government statements show there's very little publicly available documentation to support the notion that only violent offenders were sent away. So, Caroline Leave It to Beaver, as we call her here, was asked about this. Or no, this is not here. I'm sorry. This is Bondi herself.
Oh,
Wow,
this is Bondi.
Yeah, sorry. They kind of all look the same to me. I guess evil blonde women all look the same to me. But that is actually Bondi herself, pardon me, taking questions about this. And she bails on the interview in short time.
75% of the immigrants who were sent to El Salvador do not have public criminal records. Is that true?
Do you mean in our country?
The Venezuelan migrants who were sent to...
Okay, well, they're not Venezuelan migrants. They're illegal aliens from Venezuela who should not have been in our country, who are committing the most violent crimes. So if you committed a murder in our country, we're going to keep you here, and we're going to seek the death penalty, and we're going to keep you in prison because our victims' families deserve that. But we don't have to charge them with every crime. We can deport them and get them out of our country and save room in our prisons because they should have never been in our country to begin with.
So you confirm they didn't commit a crime, right? Is that what you're confirming?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, that's enough.
How many cases have you all...
I'm sorry, man. You can really see by the women that Trump chooses to appoint that his standard is essentially the same standard Fox News has for female anchors.
Right.
Like blonde and reasonably attractive.
Right. Zoftic, stupid, and evil. Those
Yeah.
are his 3 criteria. Yes.
75% of the
One more time.
immigrants who were sent to El Salvador do not have public criminal records. Is that true?
Do you mean in our country?
The Venezuelan migrants...
I mean, you tell me. You're the attorney general who's presiding over these deportations. You think you'd be a little better informed than that?
who were sent to...
Okay, well, they're not Venezuelan migrants. They're illegal aliens from Venezuela who should not have been in our country, who are committing the most violent crimes. So if you committed a murder in our country, we're going to keep you here, and we're going to seek the death penalty, and we're going to keep you in prison because our victims' families deserve that.
Okay, so this doesn't even make any sense. She's obviously just scrambling so
Well,
she
that's
doesn't
what they
look like
do.
an idiot and say nothing.
Well, that's another way. They're like Fox News hosts. Like
Right.
their only job is to go along with whatever the message is of the day, with no regard to facts whatsoever.
Well, she just says here, so if they committed a violent crime, we're going to keep them here and give them the death penalty. But I thought the violent criminals are the ones you're sending
Right.
to El
Yeah.
Salvador. She just said 75% according to 60 Minutes, 90% according to Bloomberg, have no criminal record. And so why are they being sent there? Are they being sent there just for immigration violations? Are you sending them to torture prisons for immigration violations? That seems a bit extreme. So no real answers there, which is, of course, why she ultimately bailed. The administration has acknowledged in court that not all the men have criminal records, but say it's only further evidence of the threat that they pose. Heads I win, tails you lose, right? I figured this would be what they would say.
Well, they might do something.
Right. Well, no, they would say here, it demonstrates that they are terrorists with regard to whom we lack a complete profile. Robert Cerna, the acting field office director of enforcement and removal operations for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, said in a legal filing in the battle over the deportations. So it's heads I win, tails you lose. If you have a criminal record, you have to go to CECOT. If you don't have a criminal record, it's because you're part of such a sophisticated criminal underworld network that you have to go to CECOT. Right?
If you're not a witch, you would drown.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So here is Donald Trump being asked if he'd be willing to extend these deportations to American citizens who are in prison. Here's what he has to say.
The president there said he would be willing to take American citizens in the federal prison population. Is that one of the ideas you're going to be discussing?
Well, I love that. If we could take some of our 20-time wise guys that push people into subways and that hit people over the back of the head and that purposely run people over in cars, if he would take them, I'd be honored to give them. I don't know what the law says on that, but I can't imagine the law would say anything different. If they can house these horrible criminals for a lot less money than it costs us, I'm all for it. But I'd only do according to the law. But I have suggested that, why should it stop just at people that cross the border illegally? We have some horrible criminals, American-grown and born.
See, remember when we said, trust us, it's not going to stop at the criminal immigrants? He's doing it for us. He's saying, well, hey, I don't really see why it has to stop there. Right. Why can't we just send our own there?
But I have suggested that, why should it stop just at people that cross the border illegally? We have some horrible criminals, American-grown and born. And if we have somebody that bops an old woman over the head, if we have somebody that is in jail 20 times and goes back and shoots people all over the place and then has a bad judge or a bad prosecutor that do nothing about him, all they worry about is politics, they don't worry about that. I think if we could get El Salvador or somebody to take them, I'd be very happy with it, but I have to see what the law says. Okay, what else?
Got to see what the law says, of course.
If we got a CEO being investigated by 17 different agencies, blatantly violating labor law, we got to look into that.
Got to look into that. That's right. Okay, so
if you have maybe a Treasury Secretary who conspired to crash the British pound, causing untold suffering to an entire nation just to make a little money, who still brags about it now, maybe those people could go there.
Yeah, maybe they have room. We'll charge them extra for those. Charge them extra for the white-collar criminals. Here is Carolyn Leavitt for real this time. I got her confused with Pam Bondi. I mean, they really do look alike.
Washington's favorite sugar baby.
Right, exactly. So here she is, taking questions about what Trump had just said.
Discussed this idea quite a few times publicly. So the president has discussed this idea quite a few times publicly. He's also discussed it privately. You're referring to the president's idea for American citizens to potentially be deported. These would be heinous, violent criminals who have broken our nation's laws repeatedly. And these are violent, repeat offenders in American streets. The president has said, if it's legal, right? If there is a legal pathway to do that, he's not sure. We are not sure if there is. It's an idea that he has simply floated and has discussed very publicly as in the effort of transparency. Reagan. Thank you.
Okay, so I just have two quick points about this. Number one, Donald Trump said there on the airplane that El Salvador houses them for cheaper there than we would have to pay as the American government to house them here. The El Salvadoran president has already said that this works out well for him because he gets paid more by the United States government than it costs him to house people. So I would like someone to explain to me, like I'm 5 years old, how that
Can you send Diddy? I need a party planner.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I would like someone to explain to me, like I'm 5 years old, how this is not human trafficking, which is what I called it the second I learned it. How is it not human trafficking? He is saying the soft part out loud. He's explaining the operation. He's explaining who benefits and how. Second part, something I've also brought up many times in the past and will continue to bring up as conditions worsen here in this country. The appeal that they are making to their base right now is one that there are a lot of people in this country, some snuck across the border, some are homegrown, just using Trump's words that we just saw, who want to beat you up, rob you, assault you, kill you, and we are going to punish as severely as possible those who do. That, to me, is their main pitch to the public right now. So unless you are a complete paranoid lunatic who cannot leave your house without looking over your shoulder to make sure no one's coming after you, unless you're that personality type, what is in it for you in Trump's second term? I haven't heard any appeal beyond that. That to me is every chance they get, they are describing how they are going to rain hell upon those who want to fuck you up. Yeah. And so to me, the entire appeal is just paranoia. And to the extent that they are now able to sell these deportations as crime reduction, as a crime and safety measure, even as now we have two major reports from CBS and Bloomberg saying 90% no domestic criminal record, separate investigation, different pool of deportees, I would assume. Or perhaps not, because it's the same 238 people, so perhaps it's the same pool, saying 75% no criminal record at all. At all. Their response to that is, well, if they have no criminal record, that's all the more evidence that the gang is so sophisticated that they're able to evade justice. Right, that proves they're guilty. So, that's where we're at with this. This is why I said from day one, you're crazy if you think this is only about criminals. First of all, you're crazy even if it is about criminals if you think anyone should be detained in a prison like that. That's considered cruel and unusual punishment, even for violent criminals. I think they deserve due process and treatment at a facility that's not just a wholesale for-profit torture farm.
Yeah. This is where you look at people who support this, and it's disproportionately male and disproportionately made up of people who feel powerless in their lives. This is not a rhetoric that really speaks to people who are not looking for someone to abuse to feel better about themselves. Right. And this is a very old trick to divide workers, to divide particularly along racial lines, along lines of identity. This is the trick that many people point out. Very few Southerners actually owned slaves. Most people were poor, white dirt farmers and impoverished themselves in order to keep them from finding common cause with the slaves. They say, hey, you're better than them, ain't you?
Right.
Ain't you? Exactly. You're better than them. It's the same thing. They're just putting that onto migrants, which is clearly racially coded because many of the same people who celebrate these Michael Bay videos that Bukele puts out of deporting these, now we know for certain, mostly innocent of any crime people. These are the same exact people who will turn around and celebrate white South Africans coming to America. And then you're going to say, no, it's not about race. Not about race. What do you mean it's not about race? Well, they have skills, agricultural skills, unlike South Americans.
Right.
Really? That's where you're going to go? It's very sad. I say the same thing to people like that I say to the libs. You're going to figure it out eventually. Eventually, you're going to figure out that none of these people give a shit about you. Maybe sooner, maybe later. Eventually, there's only so much poverty and so many rug pulls you're going to be able to go through before you realize it's just a big game of Lucy in the football, man. Or as George Carlin put it, it's a big club. You ain't in it.
That's right. That's right. All right. We got a nice crowd filing in here today. Let's go to some super chats and Rumble rants. We'll start on Rumble today. Hillary Hinton says, I love Due Dissidents so much that I'm going to use my 401k to buy you dirtbags 1 cup of coffee that you'll have to split because there's so much winning. Sorry about the dirtbags thing. Well, thank you in advance, Hillary Hinton.
He came to the tour.
That's right. You met Hillary Hinton. Indeed. Mad Wolf. Okay, about that pizza from the live stream.
Oh,
what in the actual fuck was that all about? Looked like fat grubs. Yeah, that's what it looked like. Grubs.
It looked
no
like
wonder...
grubs. That's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
We got to get Ian on here to talk about this.
We talk about that pizza. Yes. No wonder the Brits couldn't conquer the world. No one can stomach their cuisine. There you go. Sunrise says, did Poole take off the beanie before he unzipped the BB? Ha ha. Good one. Sunrise, appreciate that. Conda Strike says, hey, DD. Hey, Sunrise. How's it going? Appreciate that. Okay. There we go. Conda Strike. Beautiful. All right. Ahmed Isa, thank you for the $5. It's nice to catch your show live finally while I'm visiting the U.S. Oh, beautiful. Well, welcome. Welcome to the United States, and congratulations on getting through customs with a name like Ahmed. I'm surprised you had the courage to come here. I won't leave the country because I don't want to face customs when I come back. My name's Keaton Weiss, right? So yeah,
not even kidding, because you've got a
I'm not kidding. I'm not joking.
You got
I didn't
a
mean that as
lawless
like a
government.
Joke. No, I'm dead serious. I'm 100% serious.
Well, with you, like, you don't even want to cross the border into another state.
Yeah.
For me, this is actually a relevant issue.
Right.
Where I'm like, shit, I want to go to China of all freaking places in the fall.
Right. Exactly.
And I'm not worried about China. I'm worried about here.
Getting back in.
About coming back here.
I'm not kidding about. No, I'm not joking about that at all. Javier, thanks for the $4.99. Hey, can we get the please clap soundbite for the live shows as well? I have a hard time knowing when to do a clap. I start clapping at the wrong times. There you go. Yeah, that would be funny if we just wrapped each we just drop it in between each. All right, just so we bookmark it for everything, right?
Please clap.
Between every single segment. Yeah, could do that. Sean Brock, thanks for the $5. I've been screaming about immigration for 2 years. History repeats itself. They got every political statement we make databased. IDF, secret popo coming. Well, there's a story that we didn't get to today, which we might get to on Sunday, but that they're going to start screening people who immigrate here. They're going to start screening their social media posts for anti-Semitism. Not for anti-Americanism necessarily. Although some people get, shaken down if they, what was it? Hatred of Trump. Some guy, your post showed hatred of Trump.
A French physicist who was coming for a conference.
We've realized you don't like Trump. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I mean, that is not far off. Not far off at all. Brad Gilbert says, I bet Bondi she couldn't make Kamala look smart, but I had no idea she would tell Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue to hold her beer for the loony bet. Good one, Brad Gilbert. Appreciate that. All right. So we have a twist in the tariff story, a shocking twist. Art of the deal, as the influencers are saying now.
Yeah, that's the art of the deal. What a road we've been down over the last week. Remember that? All those days ago? It's Liberation Day in America. This was April 2nd when Donald Trump announced his full raft of tariffs on 180 different countries with a base tariff of 10% for everybody. As people started to complain and hem and haw about it, he stuck to his guns. Only the weak will fail. He truthed out. Is that what you say? Truthed out? Big business is not worried about the tariffs because they know they are here to stay. But they are focused on the big, beautiful deal, which will supercharge our economy. Very important. Going on right now. But as it turns out, a lot of big business interests and financiers were worried about it. Bill Ackman wrote a whole memo on X about this. This is the money shot. The president has an opportunity to call a 90-day timeout. Almost like these people tell him what to do. Negotiate and resolve unfair asymmetric tariff deals and induce trillions of dollars of new investment in our country. If, on the other hand, on April 9th, we launch economic nuclear war on every country in the world, business investment will grind to a halt, consumers will close their wallets and pocketbooks, and we will severely damage our reputation with the rest of the world that will take years and potentially decades to rehabilitate. What CEO and what board of directors will be comfortable making large long-term economic commitments in our country in the middle of an economic nuclear war? So doesn't look like big business was not worried about the tariffs. We can say that Ackman represents a lot of the points of view of big business, even within his own party, facing rebellion, and this is ongoing actually. 7 GOP senators sign on to bill to check Trump's trade authority. Now, what Trump is doing right now, invoking an economic emergency that they date as having started in 1935, is clearly illegal. If you actually had a Senate and a Congress willing to exercise its powers, they would be able to shut this down. And even with a mostly complacent Congress, some of them are trying to shut it down. No, presidents can't, just like kings, impose tariffs except in an emergency, which when you're starting your argument at 1935, by definition, you're not talking about an emergency. So what he's doing is illegal, but laws only really count if someone's going to enforce them. And the people whose job it is to enforce them are not going to do it, although there are a few renegades, as you can see. Even the podcast set, though, started to get a little nervous. Joe Rogan, Dave Portnoy, and Ben Shapiro are among Trump backers now questioning tariffs. You know why? Because they were all rich motherfuckers. That's what we keep telling you, man. Rogan, wait, you think Rogan doesn't have millions and millions of dollars in the stock market, in the bond market? So now Trump, unlike a lot of politicians, especially his age, recognized the influence of podcasters and really ran the kind of podcast strategy for his campaign. So I don't think he didn't notice that. He does pay attention to those things. More on Dave Portnoy later in the show. Be cool. Everything is going to work out well. The U.S. will be bigger and better than ever before, trying to chill everybody out. But you know who wasn't listening? The bond market. Now, many smart people are saying, and it looks pretty conclusive, this is what changed his mind. They rewrote this article. It's a little Orwellian, the way you can go back and rewrite articles that are printed online now. So I had to go back to, because I tweeted this, or I texted this to Keaton yesterday morning. I said, yo, man, this is the shit. This is serious. This is going to scare them. Bonds crater, 10-year yield spikes briefly above 4.5% in confounding move that's worrying Wall Street. Okay, so yields are inverse to purchases. The less people purchase, the more the interest rate goes up because the Treasury is not in demand. Now, normally when you have a stock market crash, people flood into the bond market for safety. They buy treasuries. They put money into the dollar as a safe haven. The fact that you had a crashing market and a spiking bond yield, that means that the dreaded day that all of our creditors start not buying our treasuries had come. And that is probably what made them change course. So that morning, more on this later too. This is a great time to buy. EJT. And later on that same day by 1:18, I think he sent that out about 9:30, like right when the markets opened. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charge to China by the United States of America to 125% effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including the Departments of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs, and that these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the United States, I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I love that sign.
Yeah, it's his new sign-off.
He's been using lately. Okay, so
very
these
professional.
Tariffs,
You like it?
very professional, very businesslike. So hey, the tariffs are here to stay. The tariffs are here to stay. The tariffs are here to stay. That morning, he says, "Hey, good day to buy." A few hours later, he lifts the tariffs except on China. So this is what Scott Bessent, part of what he had to say about this.
How much of this decision was driven by the bond market cratering overnight?
I have nothing that says that, and we actually had quite a good 10-year auction today, and all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors. And we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message.
Translation.
I meant to do that.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the story Bessent went with. Apparently, Donnie Boy didn't get the message. When he was asked about it, he had a different view.
Morning saying be cool. And just a few hours later, there was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through your thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know? They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions. Because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents. They wouldn't have done it.
Okay, so
A bunch of Jews calling me up. They were spitting out their pickles. They would say, "What the hell are you doing, Donald?"
I said, "Calm down. Put mustard on your rye." Yeah. So Bessent says we meant to do that. Trump said, "Nah. Yeah, they were getting yippy. We had to back off." So this is commentator. What's his first name? Mike Gasparino.
That sounds right. I don't know.
Spilling the beans on what really happened based on his sources. And now there's been other reporting on this. It's pretty well confirmed. It's the bond market that spooked them.
Let's be clear what happened.
Charlie.
Who capitulated here and why?
Charlie.
And, I don't want to say this because I'm a patriot. I'm an American. But it is the White House who capitulated based on everything I hear and all my sources. And the reason why is because of the bond market and what happened last night. Bessent knows this better than anybody. When you have yields on the 10-year rising to 5%, stuff starts shutting down when you have the lending markets screwed up. By the way, who was dumping the bonds? Somebody asked them if it was China, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't. It was Japan. While he was negotiating with Japan, according to my sources, who are running major money management firms that are involved in the bond market without giving up names, Japan was dumping bonds because they believed this was not a great place to do business. That forced their hands. Now, what you can say, I think, legitimately here, is Trump decided to take the win. And here's why. There was overwhelmingly, deal potential here among the entire world, except for maybe China, right? Everybody really wanted something. So he did take the win, but make no mistake about it. Peter Navarro was talking as of yesterday about not taking the win, and now they did. And it's all because of the bond market. I want to point out.
All right, and that's another interesting point. It looks like Navarro's star has sunk and Besant has risen. Because from what we hear coming from sources and insiders, is that Navarro is the maniac who just wants to shove it in the world's face and let it play out. Whereas Besant is a George Soros guy. He's more of a professional, for what it's worth. And according to reporting, particularly that came out of the Wall Street Journal today, Besant the whole time was trying to persuade Trump to handle it this way. And it looks like now Trump is going to let Besant take the lead. So Glenn commented on this video. Bill Ackman was the first to demand a 90-day pause. Then Jamie Dimon publicly spoke out. Other billionaires did privately. Then the bond market got threatening. Presidents are and always have been limited by the oligarchical class. That's why they benefit most from U.S. policy. Bacha is going to have to rewrite all of her planned monologues for the rest of the week. Michael Tracy, LOL. The Main Street versus Wall Street rhetoric was fun while it lasted. April 2 to April 9 will make for an interesting time capsule. Tweeting over the headline, Trump watched Diamond interview on Fox before deciding on tariff pause. But Bill Ackman, hey, he wants to stay in the club. This was brilliantly executed by Donald Trump. Textbook art of the deal. I was with you guys the whole time. And our friend Blakely actually responded to that. You're literally doing the meme.
Yes.
I'm adding tariffs. This will create jobs. I'm removing tariffs. Art of the deal. I'm adding tariffs. This will create jobs. I'm removing tariffs. Art of the deal. Yeah. Scott Besant, this was actually truthed by Donald Trump, in spite of the fact that he acknowledged that people were getting yippy, and that's why he backed down. That's never been an impediment to Trump saying completely the opposite the next day. So he truthed out Besant, once again asserting this was the plan all along.
Successful negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented a week ago today. It has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago, they're in this very spot, do not retaliate and you will be rewarded. So every country in the world who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down to a 10% baseline tariff for them, and China will be raised to 125 due to their insistence on escalation. I'm not calling it a trade war, but I'm saying that China has escalated, and President Trump responded very courageously to that. It signals that President Trump cares about trade and that we want to negotiate in good faith. And as I said, each one of these is going to be a separate, bespoke negotiation. So we are confident that, having seen the other side of where this could go, and it was like I said last week, the market didn't understand. Those were maximum levels. The countries can think about those levels as they come to us to bring down their tariffs, their non-tariff trade barriers. We're going to discuss currency manipulation, subsidy of labor, and industry.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about what the overall strategy is here. It's not what they're telling people, but it's also not what MSNBC would have you believe. These guys just no, it's not. They have a plan. It doesn't really have a lot to do with helping the working class, but it does have a lot to do with maintaining the hegemony of the U.S. and particularly maintaining the dollar as the world's reserve currency. There is a plan. We're going to cover that in a later segment. In terms of China, there's a lot of reporting on this. regarding what China can do in retaliation. Obviously, they're holding a lot of our treasuries. Would they actually dump the treasuries? We talked a little bit about this the other day. When you're dealing with Donald Trump, you never know. If you escalate to that point, Trump could turn around and decide the U.S. should default on its debt. So they could wind up cutting their own throats. They also hold a lot of mortgage-backed securities that they could dump to impact the U.S. housing market if they want to do something at a lower level. However, some of what Besant has been saying about how out of balance their economy is, in the sense that they don't have a consumer-driven economy. They have an export-driven economy, so they can't really fall back on increasing internal consumption. They just don't have a consumer society like that. So then you have the question of sending the exports to other countries, but Europe is struggling itself, and these other countries in Southeast Asia are trying to develop their own economies. The last thing they want is for China to dump a bunch of cheap goods on them. So there you just come to the question, is the will of the Chinese government such that they're just going to ride that out, whatever the impacts are on their economy? The idea that what Besant says, from the research that I've done, that they won't really be able to trade their way out of it, seems like it's probably true. We'll do something more extended about the China element of this on Sunday. But based on all of the reporting that's out there, this was not the plan. And actually, this broke while I was working on this. The Wall Street Journal dropped an article, why Trump blinked on tariffs just hours after they went into effect. Treasury Secretary helped persuade the president to take time to negotiate with trading partners in the face of pressure from business leaders. Trump privately acknowledged that his plan for tariffs could push the U.S. economy into a recession, but he wanted to avoid a depression, the Wall Street Journal reports, citing people familiar with his conversations. Trump had lunch Wednesday with legendary investor and brokerage founder Charles Schwab, the Journal reports. While many economists were starting to predict a recession from Trump's original plan for sweeping global tariffs, none of them were saying it would lead to a depression. All right, so apparently we're going to get into the insider trading element of this a little later. The idea that this was his plan all along, based on all the reporting we've seen, that's BS. It does look like he made this decision that day. It does look like it was made largely under pressure, partly from his Treasury Secretary, partly from Besant, but also from all of these oligarchs like Ackman who were laying the pressure on him. And it looks like the bond market was the thing. That was the thing that made him think he was going to cause a Great Depression and get blamed for it.
Well, yeah, things were going too far downhill too fast.
Right.
Right. There was no way that they could conduct the kinds of negotiations that they wanted to conduct with things spiraling out of control here the way they were, because with each passing day of the market just imploding, people's retirements just evaporating,
right.
Public sentiment turning against them, not only is that bad politically for Trump, but it also weakens greatly the United States' leverage in whatever negotiations they're looking to conduct, right? And I believe that it was a mistake to put these on in the first place, because I think countries got a taste of that. And, Scott Bessent says, well, now they've got a taste of what this will look like at its worst. Well, so did we. So did we. We got a taste of what it'll look like at its worst, too. And the people don't want this, obviously. All these claims about how, we're going to have jobs. I mean, that's absurd. I mean, we already covered that. The idea that there is infrastructure in place to sort of insulate us from the consequences of this is just absurd. The idea that it's a year and a half away is absurd. I mean, that's just laughable on its face. So, yeah, everybody got a taste of this, including us. And so I don't think this strengthens us moving forward. I think it was a mistake that he had to undo before things became irreversible. And so he did it. he caved. He caved to save face. This was a pretty big L at the end of the day.
And also to point out, even on the face of it, what Besant is saying about the other countries held their fire, that's not true. The Europeans just announced a 25% tariff that they were going to hit us with.
Right.
So why don't you keep the tariffs up on them? Now, the idea that maybe they can make lemonade out of these lemons, because as I say, China is not in a great position overall. Maybe they can, but this was not the way they originally conceived this playing out. Yeah, China's in a tough spot, but as you point out, so are we.
Of course.
If you assume, though, that they don't really give a shit about workers, this is really about preserving American hegemony and preserving the strength of the dollar as the world's reserve currency, while at the same time weakening the dollar. Again, we'll get into this a little later. Yeah, they might be able to accomplish that. It's not going to do anything for the average person, particularly in light of the draconian cuts they're making to the social safety net at the same time.
Right. Indeed. Skyman2204 says the slave trade is back, baby. Gets enslaved. Chud voter. Haha, good one. The politics of terror will always find its way back to those who support it. That's correct. Dimitri Mugianis says, my grandmother came illegally in the 1920s. Can we dig her up and send her back? And half my dad, uncles, both World War II vets. Thanks, Dimitri. Free men die free says, the only reason to have a closed-door meeting with journalists is narrative control. Sincerely, hard right libertarian. Thank you, free men. Sean Brock, thanks for the $5. We have a lot of leverage now. Socialism or republicanism, solidarity or poverty. Learn to love it. I've been poor my whole life. No 401k. No house. Well, thank you, Sean, for those precious $5. I appreciate that, my friend. $1 Million Trooper. So what you're saying is Snow White was a eugenics parable. Peter Thiel might fund your adaptation. There you go. Thank you, $1 Million Trooper. Appreciate that. Noah Goop says, I'm half American, but with the whole checking for anti-Israel speech for visas and phone searches at the Canadian border, I don't think I'll be visiting anytime soon. Sad. I do not blame you.
Don't blame you.
I do not.
Part of this whole Buffalo thing was I liked the idea that you could just go back and forth to Canada.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of like, oh no, I don't want to go back.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I'm going to wind up at CECOT.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. R. W. The ethos of higher U.S. education system. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And you'll get a lot further if you're dumb as fuck. Thank you, R. W. Appreciate that. Trump only hires DEI white blonde women. Thank you, Nocturnal Human.
Seriously.
Appreciate that.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Levitt is actually good at her job if you're looking for an Ava Braun kind of person who has no shame and will say whatever the party tells her to say. Bondi doesn't have any particular qualifications that I can see other than that. Like, she's not good at her job unless your definition of good is no ethics.
All right, well, let's move on to Portnoy. So this is sort of a little spin-off segment here.
All right, so Dave Portnoy has really been on a manic depressive emotional roller coaster ride this week with the stock market. Now he is openly a Trump supporter, voted for Trump. Breaking in a stunning moment, big Trump supporter Dave Portnoy blasts Trump's tariffs, saying, I'm down 7 million today. So let's see that.
Almost tweeted out, Dave, how much are you down right now and today? 7 million. I'm down 7 million bucks in stocks and crypto. And it's tariff city. Trump has put his tariffs all over the place. I've been trying to understand them. I don't. Like, it's more a trade deficit tariff to me. Like, hey, we get this much shit from you and you get this much from us. Let's even that up. Let's get some wacky formula and do tariffs. And everything's in the shitter because of it.
He's even got under pressure in the background.
Yeah. Now understand the world that these people live in. This is why Elon with half $500 billion would literally be almost in tears on Fox News about his stock price going down. When, stock prices go down, he's never going to have real problems. Same thing with Portnoy. Look how strung out he is. Look how strung out he is. He has more money than you or me are ever going to see in our lifetimes. Many times over. Look how strung out he is. People are just obsessed with money. That's it. They're just greedy psychopaths.
Right.
You
Why are you
lost
even
7
trying
mil-
to grow your wealth in the stock market if you're worth $100 million?
Right.
Why are you even trying for it?
Right. That's not like a normal person. Like, to admire these people, you're really admiring very broken people who don't really have normal empathy and emotional connection to other human beings. If you did, and you had that kind of money, I've said this before. Yo, man, I assume most of the people watching our show, whether you agree with us politically or don't, are, decent people. What if you had that kind of money, man? Like, wouldn't you feel like you should mostly use it to try to help people? The fact that these people don't, that tells you all you really need to know about them and who they really are.
Version. It's sick. It's degenerate and sick.
So he went on to lose more money, and he was not happy about it.
Super viral when I said I lost $7 million. I'd kill to be back to losing $7 million. I haven't even looked. If I had to guess, I'm down in these last 3 days, probably close to 20. I don't know, like 10, 15% of my net worth, poof. But I'm still here. That's the game. Am I crying? Am I like, oh, woe is me? I wish I voted for Kamala. No.
Kind of sounds
Do
like
I
you
wish
are.
this didn't go down like this? Yes. Am I in this to make money? Yes.
Sounds like
Look
you're
how
crying to
upset
me.
this guy is. He said he lost 10 to 15% of his net worth. So what does that mean? He has like $150 million?
Well, 150 to 200 million, depending on the 10 or the 15, I guess, right? Because 10% would mean if 20 million is 10%, it means his net worth's 200 million.
Right.
It was 100 million after he sold the Barstool Sports. So if he invested that right, yeah, it could be up to 200 million.
Look how upset
200
this
million
guy
fucking
is.
dollars for eating
Look
pizza
how-
and jerking off watching football.
Well, this is why I say anyone who admires these people, who takes them seriously, you're a peasant, man. You are a peasant. Look at what a disgusting person this is. This fucking guy has hundreds of millions of dollars. He's got to know, at least intellectually, that most of the people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck. And you got the balls to go on and cry about the fact that you lost part of your net worth and you're still worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And worse than that is if you have such a peasant mind that you watch that and you go, yeah, man, Dave's telling it like it is. Wow. All right. So you have the other thing. Now he really crossed MAGA with this.
Yeah.
He used
Blaming it on Trump.
He used the orange man slur.
The orange man slur.
I'm up 8.2 million today.
No, that's wrong.
Wait, that's wrong.
Yeah, it's the wrong one.
Is it wrong or is it? Oh, no. Wait a minute. No, that's the wrong one. Oh, that's my bad. That's you. That's
mine.
yours.
Yeah.
That's yours. Okay, here it is. I got it. Sorry about that, folks. Look very similar. All right. So here, take that off the screen so we get a clean edit. All right. Here is the correct video.
Arrows going down. MicroStrategy down 12%. Coinbase 10%. Yeah, it's red. It's ugly. Don't jump. Orange Monday. Don't call it Black Monday. It's Orange Monday. This is Trump's tariffs have absolutely decimated the market. And it's ugly. So anyways,
all right.
What I was saying,
I'm going to have to eat a lot of pizza and watch a lot of college basketball to make that money back. That's what I do for a living. I eat pizza and watch baseball, and I'm worth $200 million.
Yeah, that's a guy to take advice from. Yeah, man. Yeah, he used the orange slur. He slurred Donald Trump's color.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
did not call him a person of color. He called him orange man.
Yeah.
Even worse. It gets worse, though. It gets worse. He goes on CNN, talks about voting Democrat.
See yourself supporting Democrats?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing about me, which drives me crazy, I vote for Trump.
Oh, we need the whole thing.
Could you see yourself supporting Democrats?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing about me, which drives me crazy, I vote for Trump. I support him. I was never like some crazy MAGA guy. Like I look at each candidate and I choose who I like. I think the left and a lot of even what they did with, I want to say, hiding Biden's mental state and not having a primary really drove me to the right. So I am not somebody who would just strictly vote based on Republican or Democrat. I vote on the people running, how I think they speak to me, the issues that are important to me. But yes, I will vote how I feel is the best interest of what I believe in.
Look, whoever could get me my $20 million back, I'll vote for whoever.
I'll vote for whoever.
Yeah.
If you're going to lift the tariffs and you're going to subsidize pizza.
Yeah.
So hey, who's his audience, right? It's not the CNN audience. It's the MAGA audience. He must have seen a little dip in his viewership because here he is. Here he is the next day. After all that, I'm losing 7 million. It's Orange Monday. I might vote Democrat. But now he was with you the whole time.
I'm up 8.2 million today. And I bought at the low. I'm getting some stats. I'm stuck.
Oh, that makes me feel great.
All the left, they're going to run away. They're going to disappear. I got that guy from the West Wing. Let's see.
Oh, the left was going to run away. You look like you were running pretty fast in the other direction there, dude. All of a sudden, it's the leftoids. It's the left running away. I got it.
Here, I got that guy from the West Wing. Let's see. The West Wing guy saw him email me today. That wonderful moron. I'm going to bring this country together. I told you. I said, be patient. All right, this guy.
That's what he was saying.
That guy from the West Wing.
The fucking balls, man. I'm just saying, be patient. The guy was having total hysterical meltdown.
The guy was saying he'd vote for Democrats.
Saying he'd vote for Democrats.
All right, this guy. Oh, that guy from the West Wing. Someone's going to crush on me. All these left people, you voted for this. Oh, he's crying. I'm dancing. I said it's a time to buy. I said give him some time. He's not a crazy person.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. All right. Orange Monday.
And I keep buying. That's all I said. I go, don't pretend the stock market don't matter because it matters. And by the way, Trump's not a fucking crazy person. He knows it matters. He's negotiating, but he gets it. He can't, like, the stock market is tied in with Main Street, Wall Street. Let it eat. Let me eat. And they let me eat. I'm putting pizza burgers.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, you know, he basically spent a week, 1 week of losing a minor percentage of his net worth when all said and done. 1 week of that, he's like, yeah, Democrats are looking pretty good. Next day, the stock market spikes. I was telling you.
Dancing, shaking his ass for the camera.
It's not crazy. You called it Orange Monday. You literally called it Orange Monday and said this is the whole stock market's going down because of one man's trade policies. Doesn't sound like you were telling people to be patient. Incredible. The shamelessness. And by the way, I'm curious what he's doing today, because as you could have seen coming a mile away, that was a big relief rally at the news, but the underlying systemic risks are still there. The markets have given back half of what they gained yesterday.
Well, yeah, that back and forth. I mean, that reversal, that was par for the course on Twitter. Michael Tracy tweeted out, I sent you this tweet, I'll read it now. He says, well done to all the principled pro-manufacturing influencers who had to spend last week coming up with reasons why the tariffs were amazing, right? So the flip side of Portnoy is you had all of the MAGA influencers who are just with Trump every step of the way, no matter what. See, Portnoy's with Trump until he costs him $20 million. Then he shops his support around, which is what the Ackmans do. That's what all the uber wealthy people do. They don't care about anything. That's what people don't understand. When you have that amount of money, a lot of these people just do not care about anything else but maintaining and growing that net worth. That's how they amass that net worth in the first place, right? But on the just true believer like Jack Posobiec line, Benny Johnson, money doesn't matter, right? Oh, well, yeah, losing money, it's a fugazi. It doesn't matter.
It's a fugazi.
Whatever. And then when the stock market goes up because he cancels the tariffs, they're touting that the stock market went up and this was art of the deal, right? So they don't care about anything. I mean, they just go back and forth no matter what. Portnoy goes back and forth according to how much money he has. And then the other guys, the real just die-in-the-wool, MAGA no matter what, just back Trump. And then if the policy is reversed, they'll advocate for the opposite policy and act like they never advocated for that. Well, now I guess, tariffs are off, so that's great because now the stock market's up. When tariffs were on, it's who cares if the stock market's up. The tariffs are going to be good for the working class in the long run. So, yeah, it's just a level of shamelessness that is more commonplace than you might think. That aside, just like the optics of being worth that much money, dancing because you made a bunch of money back at the stock market. Like, you're Dave Portnoy, your audience has to skew more blue collar. I mean, they're beer drinking, chicken wings, pizza, and sports. Like, it's maybe not a working class audience, but a lot of working class, certainly a middle class. It's a regular Joe kind of audience. Well, you think it's a good look? You think it's becoming for a guy worth as much money as you are to be shaking his ass on camera, dancing because he just made back the small portion of his net worth that he lost a few days ago and almost had a complete meltdown, almost tanked his entire brand by saying, yeah, I'll vote for a Democrat if it gets me my money back.
Well, but you got to remember, and that's why Portnoy really is a much more natural fit for MAGA, because that's what all of this is about. It's this celebration of disgusting wealth by people presenting themselves as regular guys. That's Trump's whole thing. He plays the regular guy thing. Portnoy's in that direction. It's Rodney Dangerfield.
Right.
Hey, the regular guy look.
Right, exactly.
And also that underlying, Hunter Thompson thing that you're going to be the big winner that emerges from the casino in the pre-dawn. You're going to be like one of these guys, especially Dave, because he's doing this stock instruction thing, right? So you could be like Dave, trade with Dave. Dave's going to give you his trading insights. I mean, that's a whole multi-billion-dollar business, all of these trade with us companies, and you got somebody who has developed a persona as a regular beer drinking, pizza eating guy. A lot of his audience are going to be Gen Z day traders trying to make it on Robinhood.
Right. Exactly. All right. We are at 2050 in the YouTube chat. Beautiful. All right. Dominic Morrow says, I showed a photo of that British tumor pizza to a friend. He punched me in the face. Thank you for that. Let me just do something.
Dude, that was just wrong, man.
Yeah, that was tough. That was rough stuff. That was very rough. P. Walker says, Jared convinced Trump to appoint a moron from the Manhattan Institute named Stephen Moran, and he's the madman behind Trump's tariffs, not Navarro. Interesting. All right. The Yuppies says, keep up the amazing work. Love you guys. Thank you very much. Check out Where Watermelons Grow by the Yuppies, Free Palestine on SoundCloud. Okay, we'll do that. Thank you very much. All right, Russell, we have some business to take care of. I got to do our CBD read. So for formatting purposes.
That's good opportunity for me to deal with my videos.
All right. Well, you just got to remove yourself from the screen first because I need half the screen. That's how they want it formatted. There we go. Beautiful house orders. All right. So, folks, if you're still tossing and turning all night and you're feeling edgy during the day, let me tell you about CBD from CB Distillery. Millions are turning to their CBD for relief because it works. In fact, over 90% of customers report better sleep with CBD. And it's not just sleep. CB Distillery offers targeted formulations for just about everything: sleep, stress, mood and focus, pain after exercise. They even have CBD for pets, and it's all made with the highest quality, clean ingredients, no fillers, just premium CBD. I started using CBD products myself about 4 years ago when I would just have nonstop interrupted sleep every single night. I would wake up at like 1:30 in the morning and could not fall back asleep to save my life. And so I started taking CBD then. My uncle recommended it to me. He is a user of plant products, shall we say. And he recommended CBD. There's no THC. It's not a drug. It doesn't affect you mentally in that way. But it definitely helped with my interrupted sleep, and I've been using it ever since. CB Distillery has amazing prices on these products to begin with, and they're having a store-wide sale with a coupon code that I'm going to read you in a moment. But in terms of a good product to get started, I like to just use the oils. That's my go-to. But the really cool thing about CB Distillery is they have these here. These are soft gels. So these are CBD oil in soft gel form, which is really good if you're just starting out because they're pre-dosed, pre-measured, so you don't have to measure it the way you would do oil in a dropper. 30 milligrams per dose, which is a great starter dose. One of those a day. It's really good stuff. They sent us a bunch of their products. I like it quite a bit. And so oils, soft gels is a great place to start, but they have a full catalog of stuff that I recommend checking out. With over 2 million satisfied customers and 100% money-back guarantee, CB Distillery is the source to trust. So if you're struggling with stress, sleep, or other health concerns and haven't found relief, make the change like millions are to CBD from CB Distillery. Now, for a limited time, you can save 25% off your entire purchase to begin with, absent any sales or discount codes. This is some of the most reasonably priced CBD on the market, but now you do get 25% off your entire purchase. So go to CB Distillery and use promo code DD. That's right. Real simple. DD promo code for 25% off. That's cbdistillery.com. Promo code DD. cbdistillery.com. All right. Russell, you can come back in if you're still there. Where'd he go? There he is. All right, cool. All righty. Beautiful. You got the other videos loaded in?
Yep.
Nice. Very good. I should probably take one of these on the air sometime. I take them at night. I do take them like before I go to bed. That's why
just light up a big spliff, man.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Why don't we go to some Rumble rants here? Keaton be a man, smoke a joint, says Gina and Heidi. That's the thing. I'm not a weed guy. So that's another important point. Like I never like to smoke marijuana. I've smoked a few times in my life. I never liked it. So yeah, CBD, it's a different thing. It does not affect you in that way. EO Shush, you guys are criticizing Trump, but I see it as Trump making progress. He said he's looking into the law when he usually ignores it. Yes, thank you, EO Shush. Good point. Appreciate that. Going forward, says Hillary Hinton, I'm living life under the assumption that Earth is a literal hell dimension and that there's no Zio vampire slayer. I have zero doubt that this is true. Nothing is more obvious. Kit's Corner says, all this mass deportation makes me worry they'll censor Neil Diamond's song America for pushing propaganda. Also, Canadians were detained by ICE for renewing work visa.
Oh, yeah, well, that happened to the actress from American Pie. She got held in detention for 11 days.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, just totally crazy to the point where, yes, I am sincerely nervous about leaving and coming back. All righty, folks. So we're going to now move on here. So this is kind of a crazy story. This has been the talk of Twitter for the last day or so. Netanyahu pushes back on anti-Israel trends in meeting with who? With podcasters. That's right. That's right. So Netanyahu, during his Washington visit, called a secretive podcasting summit. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tried to push back against anti-Israel trends in the right-wing media world by holding a briefing in the Blair House for podcasters and other media figures, sources in the meeting told Jewish Insider on Tuesday. So if you start hearing sponsorship deals from Manischewitz by Dave Rubin, you know where that originated. Among those in attendance were podcasters including Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, and former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, writers Bethany Mandel and David J. Harris Jr., influencer Jessica Krause. Hey, she's the one who Candace Owens thinks has some shit on RFK. Commentary senior editor Seth Mandel, and Federalist editor-in-chief Molly Hemingway. In addition to Netanyahu, his diplomatic advisor Ophir Falk and Israeli ambassador to the U.S. Yechiel Leiter were present on the Israeli side. Poole expressed concerns about increased anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism in the pro-Trump podcasting space, according to sources in the room. Now, he has some comment on that himself, because he wasn't thrilled that this came out at all and was not thrilled about it being written about in that way. Poole famously had Kanye West on his podcast, and the rapper walked out mid-interview after Poole pushed back against anti-Semitic comments. Responding to Poole, Netanyahu said that this is the reason he invited the group to meet with him. He also said he should wear smaller yarmulkes because it's a little confusing. It's a little confusing when the yarmulke looks that much like a beanie. Apparently, that's what it is.
You look like the kid from South Park. What are you
look
doing?
like the kid from South Park with that. What are you doing? Poole argued that there is a Qatari op to manipulate social media algorithms to make anti-Semitic and anti-Israel episodes appear to receive far more views than, say, tips for picking up women in order to incentivize podcasters and YouTubers to produce more anti-Semitic content. Now, Poole denies having put it that way. Netanyahu, however, was non-committal in his response, saying only that it's possible. The prime minister emphasized in the context of Qatar as well as Iran that Israel and the U.S. share the same adversaries. Iran, Netanyahu said, wants to destroy both the U.S. and Israel.
But remember, when I want to fund Hamas, the Qataris have been very good about that.
Well, this is the ultimate irony, is that you could argue that Hamas itself is a Qatari op funded by Netanyahu. But, you know, Tim Pool really thought, I suppose, you know, there's something kind of innocent about the guy at the end of the day. He thought that this meeting was going to remain secret because, as he cites in this, it was supposed to be a private roundtable meeting with Netanyahu and other influencers. It was under Chatham House rules, which means you cannot reveal anybody who attended nor attribute anything said to any one individual. Okay, podcasters are nothing if not narcissistic starfuckers. You really think word was not going to get out about this, but apparently it did.
Not only that, Tim, you know, your audience is not made up of the least conspiracy-minded people in the world.
Right.
So how did you think it was going to play that you went... You really think that's a great defense with your audience, that this was supposed to be a secret, that you conspired with Benjamin Netanyahu to alter content to be more pro-Israel?
It's not supposed to come out, he says. All right, so here he is saying it was Chatham House rules.
I got late word that I was invited to a private roundtable meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It was under what's called Chatham House rules. For those that are not familiar, this means that you cannot reveal anybody who attended, nor attribute anything to any one individual, as they can deny it, and they would. However, what I love about what the White House is currently doing, when you bring together a bunch of influencers and podcasters who don't know much about journalism culture, whatever you want to call it, not that we respect it tremendously, most people didn't know what Chatham House meant. So with all due respect, it's funny because they bring us into the Blair House, which is where Netanyahu was staying. And immediately people are walking around with their cameras, their phones up. They actually took our phones from us. And I legit thought they would maintain Chatham House rules, meaning you can't quote the prime minister, you can't quote his officials and the other people who were there, but you can report what was said generally. If you wanted an official quote on a specific matter, you would then ask an official once the meeting was wrapped, and they'd provide you the exact quote. Or they would just say outright, like, we haven't put our quotes on that one.
Okay, so he was a little surprised that word of this got out. And he goes on to protest that Jewish Insider wrote that he was concerned about anti-Semitism, number one, and number two, that he accused other anti-Israel podcasters of being Qatari ops. He says it was close to reality, their report, but still fake news. So here he explains what he actually said, according to him.
Reality, but this is what they do. Okay. It's close to reality, but this is what they do. Okay. First, the person who was there clearly wasn't there. Ask somebody who then conveyed incorrectly what I actually said. I said there has been a report released from pro-Israel sources alleging Qatar is funding bots and operations to promote anti-Israel content. Is there any evidence that's true? And he said, I don't know. It's possible. That's what happened. I did not say they actually were doing that because I don't know that they're actually doing it. However, I did, to a variety of people, express what I've expressed on this show, that there are clearly bots that are anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. That is not to say that people who are critical of Israel don't exist or that no one is critical of Israel. People certainly are. So my concern was, and I will say this too, speaking about the meeting, how they discussed Iran, the threat, and all of these things, I feel, based on that meeting, and I don't know if this was their intention or otherwise, that they are absolutely clueless as to what is going on in this country. They are too heavily focused on kinetic, on-the-ground Israel issues, which I can understand, I guess. And my attitude, and I'll tell you one thing I said to them, to these officials: in 10 years, your support will be your support from the U.S. will be evaporating, and in 20 years, you will not have U.S. support. That's what I said. So, and I stand by that. I don't know, when it came to talks about Iran, certainly there was a deep concern, and the general conveyance from the Israelis was, Iran says death to America. You are their principal target. They are upset that the U.S. is exerting power in the region, which they want to exert. So they're coming for you. Israel's an ally of the United States. Israel's an enemy of Iran. Iran wants to crush Israel, and they want to crush the United States. The sentiment being conveyed was, whether the U.S. wants it or not, we will be in a war with Iran, whether we start it or they start it. I'm not entirely convinced that's true.
Okay, so there's a few things there. I'll take those in order. I didn't want to stop and start a million times because you have more to do. I believe him when he says that he did not accuse other influencers of being Qatari ops, and it's 50-50, I suppose. The reason I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that is because he himself has been accused of being essentially a secondhand Russian op. He was implicated in the whole Tenet media scandal, so it would just be really damaging for it to come out that he smeared other people in that way. That doesn't mean he didn't do it. After all, he thought it was Chatham House rules. He thought that none of this was ever going to come out. Okay, give him the benefit of the doubt there. Fine. I think his assessment that the tide of public opinion is turning against Israel to the point where they will really not have much support from this country a generation down the road is true. I think you are seeing, and he gets more into this in another clip that we're not going to show, but he says between the sort of populist MAGA people who are more isolationist and, an ascendant Palestine conscious left who hates Israel, those two together are going to outnumber much support for Israel moving forward. And then number three, of course, the marching orders. This is the real reason for Netanyahu wanted to talk to them. Hey, there's going to be a war with Iran. So here's what you have to say about it. And on point number two, I'll go back to that briefly. Part of the reason why younger people, both on the left and the right, are anti-Israel is because they get information from sources like podcasts, which is why you're in the room with Netanyahu. That's why Netanyahu wanted to get in the room with you. If podcasts and online media and so-called independent media are this rising force in the news world, well, then guess what? You have to come under the thumb and under the influence of Zionism, just like the corporate news media is, both in TV and print form. Why do you think Netanyahu called a meeting with podcasters, and how can you take that meeting? I have this later on in the piece, but I'll show this now. The Quartering, Russell's favorite, says, "Wait, I totally missed the story today while I was watching my stonks go to the moon." Yeah, right. Bragging about not enough. He doesn't make enough coffee, buddy. He's gonna brag about his stock portfolio. Why the heck are YouTubers meeting with Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu behind closed doors and being told they can't talk about it? Why would you take this meeting? Exactly.
Yeah, that's
why
what
would
I'm
you
saying.
take this meeting?
It's not good for his brand.
Yeah. All right,
Well,
go ahead. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I don't know if you're using it, but there's that infamous video of him trying to shut them down.
Yeah, that has
talking about the
copyrighted music,
USS,
so I can't use it. But yes, about the USS Liberty, yeah.
where it's just very weird. It is a very weird moment where they're talking about Israel attacking the USS Liberty. And he said, it doesn't matter where the missiles came from. You have to be very careful with that. And they're all just kind of looking at him like,
why?
What do you mean it doesn't matter where the missiles came from?
What do you mean we have to be careful what we say? It's a Tim Pool show. We just say whatever
Yeah,
the fucking crazy shit comes to our mind, can't we?
Well, and it's a weird moment, and that's where you do have to wonder who has influence with him. Now, with a lot of these guys, Tim Pool was there at the Rescue the Republic thing floating around. With a lot of these guys, it's all about access. It's all about access, man. And the people he wants access to in Trump's world are all foaming at the mouth Zionists.
Right.
Whether in their hearts or just for strategic reasons or just because they've been bought. I don't think Donald Trump actually gives a flying fuck about Israel one way or the other, but he cares about Miriam Adelson's money.
Right.
And that means if you want that access, well, if you're known for speaking out against Israel policy, you don't get invited to things like this. But for his brand, you're better off not getting invited to things like this. I think for the audience he has, the way he's positioned himself with this is really stupid to the point that I think he's compromised in some way. And that's why with the Qatari thing, he might have said something like that just to kiss up. Like I could see it. I could see it because look at his conduct on air and off air. The fact that he even took this meeting. I mean, that's a suck up, and that's the kind of thing he might have thought Netanyahu would like to hear.
Well, he didn't deny that there were Qatari ops on Twitter. He just denied having said there are certain big name influencers who, because like Tucker Carlson has been accused of taking that money. Ian Carroll has been accused of taking that money. He may have said that. He may have didn't. He denied it. I would give him the benefit of the doubt on that just because we don't know. But he admits to having said, there are Qatari op accounts that spread anti-Israel propaganda. Yeah, look, the point of this was access. Now, as a journalist, as a commentator, first of all, me personally, I would never take a meeting with a politician that I could not talk about afterwards. Okay, if you're going to swear me to secrecy in a meeting with a politician, then no, I'm not doing it. Never mind the Hitler of our time, like the most outrageous criminal of our time. You take a meeting with a guy like that under the assumption that nothing is going to come out about it? Come on, that can only be for access.
Yeah, and Pool's not so much in the Ben Shapiro lane. That's why I'm saying this isn't really. I mean, it seems like his audience is much more Alex Jones adjacent than Ben Shapiro adjacent. So I don't think that's really a good look for him. In terms of his analysis, I will just say I don't think Israel in its current form exists in 20 years, much less to be getting American support. It's collapsing in real time now. You're not getting a lot of reporting about this from the corporate media for obvious reasons, but there is a lot of credible reporting about the mass exodus of Israelis that you're seeing now and the collapsing economic condition of the country. When's tourism ever coming back to Israel? Ever.
Right. Of course. All right, we're going to do some more about this. So Chris Menahan, by the way, InfoLib News, he had a great thread about this, so go and follow him. It has been nearly 12 hours since this story broke, and Tim Pool and David J. Harris Jr. are the only two named influencers out of 8 to acknowledge taking part in this private meeting with Netanyahu. All the others are staying mum. Well, Dave Rubin was not mum for long, because shortly after that, he tweets out, incredible few hours with Netanyahu on Monday. He took many difficult questions. Yeah, I'm sure he got some real hardball questions from that crew. He took many difficult questions, explained how the idea of the deep state goes back to Socrates and Plato. Yeah, I bet that was brilliant. And even cracked a couple jokes. God, this guy is so stupid. But yeah, no, Netanyahu's thing now is that the deep state attacks right-wing figures like him. He took many difficult questions, none of which I will reveal to you because I privately agreed to keep it all secret, says
he's a poet
Menahan.
warrior in the classic sense.
Yeah, exactly. Sean Spicer's got a podcast now. He was among those invited. He then came out and acknowledged his participation in the meeting.
What a week it's been. I spent almost 2 hours with Prime Minister Netanyahu. We talked about this issue. And I got to be careful what I say here because most of it was supposed to be kind of off the record.
Yeah, but I won't be.
Background. But I will tell you that the difference, we talked a lot about him and his efforts to get the hostages out. We talked about his interaction with the Biden administration and their views. And without revealing too much, I'm just going to tell you that I was saddened and somewhat sickened by the Biden administration's attempts to hold him back, to get back these folks.
Oh, yeah. No, they really held him back.
October 7th.
Really
he only
tied his
flattened
hands.
the whole place.
People were taken hostage, innocent civilians, women, children, whatever. And he has a right to go fight for them. Many of them were Americans. We have a right. And the Biden administration just, the lack, not that they didn't want to get them back, and I don't want to impress that because the Prime Minister was clear on that. But I would want to go in and get everybody back as soon as possible. And I was taken back personally by what the Prime Minister shared about how the Biden administration approached his attempts to get hostages back.
Okay, well, I mean, if you need any more evidence of what this meeting really was, I mean, I don't think you need it now. I mean, this was obvious. I mean, look, the only reason the meeting would be called in the first place is because there's this new medium out there, podcasting, independent media, and we have to get our talking points embedded in that space.
Yeah.
And if Netanyahu was so partisan as to say, hey, this is where Netanyahu held me back and Trump is letting me loose, well, that just adds to it, right? I mean, this was just pure politics. And yes, I would say an attempt to embed these talking points in a new media space. Hasbara.
Yeah.
Exactly. This was a Hasbara meeting, obviously. Self-proclaimed free speech champion Dave Rubin just blocked me for criticizing his secret meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Literally just yesterday, he posted a video of himself at Oxford Union warning against silencing opposing views and suppressing dialogue. Quartering, yes, asked, why would you take this meeting in the first place? We got to that already. Lee Stranahan, Tim Pool, controlled opposition exposed. Tim Pool isn't an independent journalist. He's controlled opposition. Opposition to what? I don't really know. He seems pretty supportive of Trump in general. He bragged about attending a private roundtable meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It was held under Chatham House rules, the same rules used by the World Economic Forum and Bilderberg Group to protect the powerful from scrutiny. Real journalists refuse these terms. Chatham House rules forbid revealing who said what, shielding the elites from public accountability. Tim knows exactly what they are. He's built his brand pretending to fight these kinds of secretive gatherings, as Russell said. Yes. Yet when handed the same terms, Tim accepted them without hesitation. His only complaint that others broke the rules by leaking information. He wasn't upset about the lack of transparency. He was upset that the secrecy didn't hold. A real journalist's loyalty is to the public. Tim's loyalty, by his own actions and words, is to the people in that room. When the moment came to choose a side, truth or access, he chose access. This isn't independence, it's performance, controlled rebellion under the watchful eye of the establishment. If you still think Tim Pool is fighting for you after this, you're not paying attention. He's playing a part, and now he's exposed. Permabulla says Tim Pool is an intelligence asset. it gets to a point where whether you are or aren't doesn't really matter.
Right.
Like you're
I-
performing the way one would. Like when Emma Vigland tweeted out the ha 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 at the girl who got injured by the trans woman's volleyball spike. Like, are you an op to undermine the left? It really doesn't matter. You're acting the way an op would act. That's all that really matters to me. And yeah, I mean, why you would accept an invitation like that with any politician who expects to be able to exert influence based on the results of the meeting is beyond me. The fact that it's Netanyahu makes it a million times worse, but the principle, when you take a closed-door meeting with a politician and you are ostensibly sworn to secrecy after, it could only be because they are trying to inject their bias into your coverage. And so it's a mistake to do it under any circumstance, but wow, you couldn't have picked a worse person at a worse time.
Yeah, you just reminded me. I totally forgot. Yeah, Tim Pool and Dave Rubin were thick as thieves backstage at Rescue the Republic.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So that's probably where Dave gave him his instructions.
Yeah.
All right. So Ben says, play it like anti-establishment, and then you're going to get a meeting.
Right.
Yeah, no, all of these guys are completely full of shit, and they show it on many levels. We got into with the tariffs, how all of these rich influencers like Joe Rogan were all getting really mad about the tariffs because they all have money in the market, man. I mean, none of them are really these, champions of the people that they pretend to be. It's just like the corporate media. It's money and access. These people are not activists. They are media people with a brand. This is their income. This is their living. Now, for Tim Pool, I think he's got a little brand conflict here because on the one hand, he's more adjacent to the conspiratorial portions of the right. And on the other hand, he wants access to Trump. And in spite of the fact that the boss is pro-Israel, I've said this again and again, most of MAGA is not. They'll tolerate it from Trump because it's Trump. They'll go, it's fucked up. I don't like it, but Trump!
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
But you don't have that going on with them. They it's funny. Like they like their influencers not to be compromised by Israel, but they'll accept their leader being compromised by Israel.
Right. Exactly.
So it's not a good look for the niche in that space he occupies. There's only room for Ben Shapiro in that lane. He has everybody in that lane.
Right. With Ben Shapiro, it's just kind of par for the course, right? It's something you expect. Even the people who don't love it,
a lot
I
of
think
people
expect it.
don't watch him because of that.
Right. Exactly. All right. What else we got over here? Fat Not So Fat says the Fed is preparing a $2 trillion bailout to increase stock market liquidity. Guess who is going to pay for it? Us poor schmucks. Thank you, Fat Not So Fat. Seb Griffith says we used to have a competition show where the grand prize was Flavor Flav. We used to be such a respected society. Thank you, Seb Griffiths. Appreciate that very much. It's Vito P. Hey, Vito. Trump's favorite motivational speaker, Matt Foley, Chris Farley. Cancer sucks. Yes, thank you. That is a great skit. Timeless. Nina Kant, doesn't tariff sound like terrorist coincidence? Maybe. Thank you, Nina. Yippee, is this the president, a Seinfeld character who owns a Little Italy restaurant complaining about kids crying? Was that? Oh, yeah, there you go. There's Rubin and Tim Pool chatting it up at Rescue the Republic. There you go. Talk about the Netanyahu secret meeting. You should meme that. You should put, captions on that.
We should actually.
Yeah.
That's exclusive. Yep.
Exclusive. So the schmata I buy on Temu will be $3.50. How will we survive? Thank you, because appreciate that. Let's see here. Judy Denmark says you need to read an article on whatever that website is there. China just turned off U.S. supplies of minerals critical for defense and clean tech. China has the power to screw the U.S. royally. Yeah, I think that's probably true. I will take a look at that. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, all right. I got a few in a row here because they're all connected. All right. So One online influencer who was not invited to the Netanyahu podcaster meeting was this lovely woman here, Miss Rachel. Learn, bond, thrive. She's got 14 million subscribers on YouTube. She is a children's YouTuber. She makes content for very young kids. I would say like infant, toddler level. My kids watched her. When she was in the news, I'm like, what did she do? What could she have possibly done to piss people off, right? The most inoffensive person you could think of. My kids watched her from, when they were like 1 to 3. So yeah, toddler learning videos, nursery rhymes, stuff like that. But here she made the unfortunate mistake of expressing some human empathy for the children of Gaza who are under bombardment. So she tweets out things like this. For example, this is my friend Isrea in Gaza. She's 6 years old and loves to learn. She also loves fashion and dressing up. I'm devastated to share that 2 precious children in her class, Ali and Zayn, were killed last week. Just like your children, they were their parents' whole world. Every day I think about the over 15,000 children killed in Gaza. Over half the Gaza population are children, and food and water are blocked from them. Why don't they have human rights like other children? Why are many leaders and people silent about their suffering? Either we take care of all children in this world or we don't. All children's futures depend on us doing the right thing. She also posts stuff like this on her Instagram. 130 more Palestinian children killed, over 15,000 Palestinian children killed total. Stop bombing children. So all of this earned her this treatment from an account that you all know called Stop Anti-Semitism. From nursery rhymes to Hamas lines, Miss Rachel. Yes, Stop Anti-Semitism says, Stop Anti-Semitism is calling on Attorney General Bondi to investigate if Miss Rachel is being funded by a foreign party to push anti-Israel propaganda to skew public opinion. Since 10/7, Ms. Rachel has transformed into an amplifier of Hamas propaganda, broadcasting to 20 million plus followers across her platforms. She's promoted a, quote, starving child from Gaza photo, which was actually a cystic fibrosis case. Hamas's false stat of 14,000 kids killed. They claim now, Stop Anti-Semitism, 72% of deaths are combat-aged men. Literally every report that you'll find, aside from straight up naked Hasbara reports, say the exact opposite of that.
Well, yeah, I always know that this is why I've got a few Zionists on social media that I never argue with, because I know what the Hasbara is by what they're saying. I saw this. I saw one of the nuttiest Zionists I know saying, it's an 80% casualty rate of combatants. That's how careful Israel is being. They're being so heroic to make sure not to kill civilians. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. They like unquestioningly accept whatever groups like this put out.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable. So here's a sampling of some video posts that Miss Rachel posted to her Instagram. One is a song of prayer sung as a nursery rhyme, not only for the children of Gaza, but for the children of Israel as well. This is what's kind of makes this even more outrageous, is she has gone out of her way on occasion to sympathize with Israeli children who were the victims of either violence or hostage taking. Now she expresses more sympathy for Gaza children more often because there's thousands more Gaza children who have been victimized by this. But here's a sampling of what she's been posting.
For children in Gaza, this is a prayer. For children in Israel, this is a prayer. For all the children, please stop hurting them. This is a prayer for all the civilians. This is a prayer for all the hostages. This is a prayer for all the innocent. Please stop hurting them. If your child was without food and water and was starving, would you view that as an emergency? Would you want everyone to do anything possible to help? All children are worthy. All children are precious. All children are equal. But some children right now are in an emergency situation, such as in Gaza. I saw a picture of 2 babies in Gaza, and their thighs are like this small. Can't let children starve. That is not who we are.
Really horrible stuff, huh? So she also posts pictures and videos of children in Gaza viewing her content. Precious Celine and Sela watching Miss Rachel in their tent in Gaza. She also posts this young Palestinian girl, who is a double amputee, by the way, finding some joy in playing with the doll of Miss Rachel. By the way, I won't spend too much time on this, but the suggestion that she's being funded by anyone is absurd. I'm sure this woman is swimming in money. 14 million YouTube subscribers, merchandising, sponsors, I mean, you name it. So the idea that she needs funding is just absolutely insane. She also, like I said, goes out of her way on occasion to spare a kind word for Israeli children who have been killed. I'm devastated to hear about precious Ariel and Kafir. This was in the news recently. And their beloved mother, Cherie. My heart is with the Bibas family, the Jewish community, and people all over the world who are grieving. We need to protect children always. Those were the hostages who were killed, which is, it's obviously tragic when any child, I mean, a child is a child, they're babies, so she expressed sympathy for them. Like I said, she's gone out of her way to express sympathy for Israeli children before. You think that stops the Zionist mob from coming for you? No. Miss Rachel posts here, my friends Celine and Sela in what used to be their home in Gaza. They deserve to live in a warm, safe home again. They deserve to be children. Of course, they're watching her content on the phone right there, sitting in the ruins of their house. Miss Rachel opens up about her support for Gaza's children. I couldn't look away. She posts here, I know how crucial the first few years are for brain development and the lifelong effects trauma and malnutrition have on the brain. It's a failure of humanity to deny children food, water, medical care, shelter, and education, and to not protect children from violence. So here are some of the reactions to Stop Anti-Semitism's tweet, which, as you can see, like I said, all of this landed her in very hot water here. This is the tweet again, once again, just for reference. And here are some of the responses. Personally, I don't think she's an anti-Semite, but it's sad how easily some well-meaning people, especially those with huge followings, are coerced into spreading blatant Hamas propaganda. I didn't know Miss Rachel was so base, so that's a good one. I agree. She should definitely be investigated. Miss Rachel missed her true calling as an UNRWA school teacher. Stopped having my son watch her, says Zionist with attitude, a long time ago after the first video. And Matt Lieb, comedian, makes the important observation. Going to go out on a limb here and say sending Miss Rachel to Guantanamo will do the exact opposite of stopping anti-Semitism. Yeah, I mean, what a bunch of vicious people who would go after a children's creator for sympathizing with children. But it's not just that they're vicious and heartless. It's that people like this who reach audiences of very big audiences of mostly new moms. New moms, I know, I'm still a relatively new dad, two-time new dad, husband, proud husband of a new mom. New moms tend to be apolitical for the time that they're new moms because your entire life is caring for an infant, a toddler, a child, right? And so to reach those people, to reach that demographic of just moms, broadly speaking, forget about how politically involved they are. Many of them aren't. When you have 2.5 million Instagram followers and your posts reach mothers who share your content with their children in that way, you are shining a light on this issue to people who may be too absorbed with their own lives to really pay enough attention to really realize the horror of this. Israel-Palestine, what did everybody think about Israel-Palestine until recently? Not everybody, but a lot of people. Well, it's complicated, both sides have a claim to the land and there's violence and it's a shame, but what are you going to do? When you have a person reaching just ordinary people who skew apolitical, and you show them up close the devastating toll that this is having on children, you're appealing to not only just like base instinct when it comes to a new mother caring for a child, but you're really hitting a certain family values note. When we talked to Greg Foreman on the Jimmy Dore show, he said, um, when you argue Israel with the right, if you want to dissuade, right wingers from supporting Israel, you kind of have to put it in a context of like America first. What is the national interest? Right? Why is it in our interest to support Israel? And I challenged him a bit, and he seemed very receptive to this. He had dated a Palestinian woman, apparently, so he seemed to take this well. I said, well, what about arguing against Israel from a family values point of view? That seems to be a lot of where Candace Owens is coming from. She's horrified by this as a Christian and as a mom, right? She's going to give birth any day now, I guess. She's going to become a new mom once again. But that family values angle with just ordinary people, like you're a parent, you have a child, put yourself in the shoes of any one of these Palestinian parents and imagine the horror, imagine the lifelong scar it would leave to lose a child in this way. It's almost too much to even talk about. That's powerful. That's powerful. And so aside from being just the vicious, monstrous pieces of garbage that these Zionists are, they know that a person like that who reaches people the kinds of which I'm talking about, that is going to go a long way toward destroying their narrative. And it is going a long way towards destroying their narrative. The problem for them is like the monologue in Doubt. You go up on top of a building, you cut a pillow open, the feathers fly everywhere. Once those feathers fly, you can't contain them anymore. The word is spreading. And the word is spreading. And this is a good example. When you have people like this who exist outside the realm of politics sharing stuff like that, you're influencing a lot of people who might otherwise just say, well, it's complicated. I don't know. I don't have time to think about it. That's why they're going after her like this. It's really I won't say a new low, because there is no new low. It's all a giant low, but that's who they are.
Well, it really tells you how untenable their position is and how deep down they know that. They know their position's not tenable. They just keep more desperately trying to suppress anyone who wants to open up that kind of a conversation. As you showed, she also talked about Israeli children. She talked about the hostages. This is like going after Mr. Rogers. Usually with figures like this, somebody who has children's programming, what do you want? Them not to be sympathetic to all children? Like somebody who's really suited to that role is naturally going to be empathetic to children. People who are not complete maniacs are going to say, you know what? She plays a different role. She's transcendent of these kinds of politics. She's an ambassador for children. Of course, she's going to speak sympathetically about children. Let's leave that alone. Not these people, because you have this horrific combination of the fact that deep down, they'll never admit it, they know that their project is not morally defensible. They know that Israel is not morally defensible. You combine that with one of the worst, if not the worst cases of conditioning an entire population to dehumanize the enemy in the history of the world. Really, Zionists and many Jews, we try to make that distinction, but unfortunately, a majority of the Jewish community has been lured into Zionism. So if you go to Hebrew school, as I did, and you go through those institutions, they brainwash you with Zionism from a very early age. They really brainwash you to think those things are one and the same. And part and parcel of that is the core belief that the Arab people are inferior. They don't put it that way, but they're crazy. They're backward. They're backward, basically. They have a kakistocracy. They have bad leadership. They're ignorant. They don't know how to behave in a civilized way, and they're just like the Nazis. See, that's the key to dehumanizing them. Right? They have a irrational anti-Semitic hatred, just like the Nazis. Now, you brainwash people with that from childhood. What's not justified? What's not justified? And everything gets processed through that lens. If the news, if the UN are saying that Israel is committing crimes against humanity, well, then they're anti-Semitic. And they're being controlled by these much weaker, less powerful forces. They never explain how that's happening, like how these Arab countries are controlling the UN when the entire West is lined up against Israel. Why isn't the West buying out the UN? How are these groups buying out the UN? Why? For what reason? They don't think beyond that. They're just completely brainwashed. And it's that kind of thing that would lead you to think, no, you know what? We're going to attack a beloved children's content creator. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. That's not going to cause anti-Semitism. That's going to shut it down.
Yeah. No, it's just completely sick. And, the first part of that was really important to emphasize. The fact that she has expressed sympathy for Israeli children doesn't matter. The fact that doesn't matter, that exposes that they don't actually care what her politics are. The politics are beyond it. She doesn't even express a political view about the conflict. She's not even taking sides in the conflict. She's just saying, hey, shouldn't children be off limits? And that gets her here. Because why? Sympathy for Palestinian children is considered anti-Semitic.
Exactly.
That tells you everything.
It's Pallywood. It's Pallywood. It's all fake. They're on a set.
Yeah. That tells you everything. The fact that when you express sympathy for an Arab child, that is perceived as anti-Semitism. But that is exactly how they think for reasons that Russell just outlined. Yeah, indeed. Okay, let's go to some super chats here. Mrs. Tim Pool is hit my tool op, oh limp to toy. To my hop tool, him to plot, yo, hot moppy toil, mit poo toy, Jesus Christ. Oily moth top, homopity lop, homo deploy, moppy hit tool, moppy, yo, you should have given us.
What?
Okay, I know you're working the character limit, but you should have given us at least $20 for that. Now that was hard. That was hard. Fat, not so fat. Thanks for the $4.99. Trump recession is a beautiful word. Some people say it's bad. Another great word is depression. Yeah, it's an old-fashioned word, depression. They haven't really said that since the 30s. Yeah, they used to use that back in the 30s. Back when King Kong was popular. Portnoy's Breakdown, the sequel to Portnoy's Complaint. I like that. That's good. Whiny tears instead of masturbation. We might call this episode Portnoy's Complaints, actually, on the podcast. That's a good title. I like that.
That is a good one.
I like that a lot, Kenman. Thank you for that. Otacon says, this was literally the ha-ha. I was only pretending to be the R word. I can't read that on YouTube. Meme, by the way. China's exports to USA only account for 3% of their GDP. It may be a few percent more through secondary importers like Vietnam. Noah Goop says, Tim Pool, PBD, Kyle Kalinske, readers, etc. are, in my opinion, beyond help. How do we build a movement when our collective consciousness is so dumb? Seems to be 90% of people need re-education. Can't. Yeah.
You're not kidding, man.
No, and look, this is where, when Russell said, indie media can sometimes be just the same. Yeah, when you have direct communication with people who can influence you, it can be a corrupting influence. Now Kyle, we did a segment on this way back. Kyle likes to brag about how he's never spoken to an advertiser, as if that gives him more integrity. He says, I've never spoken to an advertiser. I just let the default ads on YouTube go. They play in front of my videos, and that's how I make money. Okay, so then you are tailoring content to be advertiser friendly because YouTube has guidelines where you can't monetize every video. We have videos that we don't even bother trying to monetize. So just because you're not having a conversation with an advertiser doesn't mean you're not influenced by the sort of market incentives to make your content advertiser friendly. A lot of times we talk to advertisers like the CBD company because we say things that are more likely to get us in trouble with YouTube, and we need to have a backup in case that happens.
And we're not going to be able to monetize the video.
Right, exactly.
Kyle will never do a video that needs to have the monetization shut off.
Exactly. So, and also Kyle doesn't stream live. So if Kyle records a take and he gets the yellow icon where it's demonetized, he could just do another take and put it in a way where it doesn't get
and he also got into the space at a time when a bleach blonde bowl of oatmeal could generate an audience.
Right.
It's a lot more competitive now.
Well, that's the other thing. So yeah, so like talking to advertisers does not mean you're corrupt. However, I will say, as someone who does talk to certain advertisers, we will only advertise certain things, right?
Yes.
We will only accept deals from certain types of, companies. I actually do use CBD, so I feel comfortable talking about it. That's an example.
And let me tell you, the Trump brand anal intruder pays big.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I've heard to turn that one down.
Yeah. So I'm not saying like to be in this space and to do business in that way is by definition corrupt, but I can tell you as someone in this space, there are a lot of pitfalls. And if you are careless, you will step in them. And Tim Pool just did that, right? Very, very careless at best thing to do. Yep. So yeah. All right. Have you guys seen the video where Tim Pool is doing a speech? The camera pans to the crowd, and it's all like 70-year-old white people. No, I haven't. That's funny. I haven't seen that. I would like to see that. Email that to us if you can. Thank you. Okay. All right. I got one more since it's Israel themed, and then we're going to go back to Russell for our last two segments. So plenty of show left, folks. By the way, smash that like button. Oh, yeah. We are at 854 likes. That is good for one of the... All right, smash that subscribe button, smash that follow button. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. Plenty of show left. Okay, so I'm glad we get to do this story. Just to catch everybody up here. We covered this story about a week ago now, maybe a little more. The story about the Palestinian medics who were killed in cold blood now, according to video evidence. Israel killed 15 Palestinian paramedics and rescue workers one by one, says the United Nations. Workers on a mission to help colleagues were buried in a mass grave in southern Gaza, says Humanitarian Office. Now, part of that article notes the IDF's initial assessment of what happened. So their first response is surmised. Israel's military said its initial assessment of the incident had found that its troops had opened fire on several vehicles advancing suspiciously toward IDF troops without headlights or emergency signals. This is how Tammy Bruce, the new sort of Matthew Miller of the Trump team,
Vampirella,
put it. What's that? Vampirella. That's right. That's right. This is how she put it.
Sure. Go ahead. On Gaza, the UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office has said that 15 paramedics, civil defense, and a UN worker were killed, in their words, one by one by the IDF. They have dug bodies up, they said, in the shallow grave that have been gathered up, and also vehicles in the sand. Have you got any assessment of what might have happened, and given the potential use of American weapons, is there any assessment of whether or not this comply with international law?
Well, I can tell you that for too long, Hamas has abused civilian infrastructure, cynically using it to shield themselves. Hamas's actions have caused humanitarians to be caught in the crossfire. The use of civilians or civilian objects to shield or impede military operations is itself a violation of international humanitarian law. And of course, we expect all parties on the ground to comply with international humanitarian law.
Okay, so as you could see there, not even doing what Matthew Miller would have done, which is, yeah, it's troubling. They're going to look into it and get back to us. And then never happens. She doesn't even go as far as to say that. She just basically implies that there were combatants who commandeered ambulances and hid behind civilian infrastructure. Well, the New York Times just a few days ago obtained very, very convincing video evidence showing that everything that the IDF said about the incident was wrong. Now, we did a thorough segment about this on Rumble. That segment is clipped for Rumble. It's also clipped for our Substack. It's free on our Substack. So please join our Rumble channel and please join our Substack. It's free. DoDissidents.substack.com. The stuff that we don't publish to YouTube for censorship reasons gets published there. But the video obtained by the New York Times shows clearly that the ambulance was marked with a red crescent. Red crescent signifying the Red Crescent Society. And you could see here the medic in clear reflective gear. Okay, so that really forced the Israeli military to change their story. Israeli military walks back account of the killing of Gaza medical workers after video appears to contradict its version. The Israeli military changed this account after the video of the shooting emerged. On Saturday, a spokesperson said in a news briefing that the initial report received from the field had not described any lights, but it appeared that the individual who gave the initial account was mistaken. That's what the IDF says. Oh, I guess they were mistaken when they said that their lights were off, they were unrecognizable, and coming right for us. I guess video that shows clearly none of that was the case. I guess it was just an innocent mistake that he described it in the complete opposite way in which the event unfolded. Now, we showed the video on Rumble and on Substack. But if you watch the video, what happens in the video is you see the vehicle is clearly marked. The video, by the way, was filmed by one of the medics who stops the vehicle, and they get out to help people who had apparently come under fire prior to them. And as soon as he stops the car, you hear gunshots from the IDF open fire. Tragically, the person who took this video was killed himself. So now you have, in a break from the United States, British Prime Minister calls for probe into Israel's killing of emergency workers in Gaza. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called for a probe into the killing of 15 emergency workers in Gaza after a video appeared to contradict Israel's account of the incident, and it walked back its version of events. There's got to be an investigation, Starmer told the United Kingdom's lawmakers on Tuesday, and we have to be absolutely clear that we're not just talking about that isolated incident. Starmer also criticized Israel's resumption of hostilities in the Gaza Strip after 2 months of relative calm in the war-torn enclave came to an end, and talks to extend the truce stalled. We need to get back to a ceasefire, he said. He also echoed warnings from the UN that there hasn't been enough aid getting into the Palestinian enclave after Israel halted all entry of humanitarian aid and goods into the Gaza Strip last month. So here's some video of these remarks from Sky News.
Of Palestine?
Well, again, I think the occupation is unlawful.
Israel and the occupation of Palestine?
Well, again, I think the occupation is unlawful. We've said that, or that's been long-standing government policy. In fact, in fairness, the last government as well. We are members of...
Remember that, by the way, because that's interesting that he says that.
The international institutions.
I've spoken to many humanitarian workers around the world who feel that Israel isn't being held to account, particularly when it comes to international humanitarian law. So will we be pushing for an inquiry into the 15 humanitarian workers that were killed on the 23rd?
Oh, I mean, there's got to be an investigation into that. And we have to be absolutely clear that we're not just talking about that isolated incident. There hasn't been enough aid getting into Gaza at speed and at pace for a very long time. The resumption of hostilities is the wrong thing, in my view. We need to get back to a ceasefire. We need to get aid in. We need to get the hostages out. And we need to put our foot in the door for a process, however remote it may seem today, towards a two-state solution, which is, to my view, the only way of guaranteeing peace in the long term. And I do appreciate that may seem a long way off at the moment.
Okay, now, in case some of you guys don't know this already or haven't guessed this, the point of this segment is not to give credit to Keir Starmer. The point of this segment is to show how much public sentiment must have shifted underneath Keir Starmer's feet for him to be talking like this now, because I want to play the first few seconds of this again.
Israel and the occupation of Palestine?
Well, again, I think the occupation is unlawful. We've said that, or that's been long-standing government policy. In fact...
Okay, so he's saying the occupation is unlawful and more aid needs to get in. This was Keir Starmer just days after October 7th, 2023. This made the rounds quite a bit because it was quite a stunning statement of disregard for the very international law that he is now citing, saying we need a ceasefire, we need more aid to get in, and the occupation is illegal. Here he is defending the Israelis' right to cut off water and electricity from Gaza in response to October 7th.
Israel must have that, does have. I'm very clear. Israel must have that, does have that right to defend herself, and Hamas bears responsibility.
A siege is appropriate? Cutting off power, cutting off water?
Well, I think that Israel does have that right. It is an ongoing situation.
Okay, so if you believe that the occupation is illegal, how could you possibly believe that Israel had the right to cut off electricity and water? If you believe the occupation is illegal, you must therefore believe that Israel should not have the capacity, much less the right, to cut off electricity and water. So he has done a complete 180 on that. This is also a complete 180 from his new position on humanitarian aid. He's saying here they have the right to forget about aid. They can cut off the water supply to Gaza. Now he's saying aid must come through. Now he's saying we need a ceasefire. So the fact that Starmer is talking like this is indication, not that he's had a come to Jesus moment. I think the guy's a completely amoral, unfeeling snake. But that shows that the public has really, their opinion has really shifted on this. Because why else would Keir Starmer feel compelled to speak in this way?
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I would assume very much like in this country where AIPAC and the Israel lobby has inordinate control over political parties and institutions, that running for prime minister, you have to bend the knee to those interests in order to maintain the support of the powerful factions you need to put you in office and not release the pictures of you with the two blondes in the hotel. So, but why now? I would speculate that maybe some of what's going on with the tariffs and the United States may give a little more independence to these countries. They may be feeling a little less like they have to keep American interests appeased by taking such a hard line on Israel. I mean, he's a bloodless freak. So why is he all of a sudden changing tune that way? That's the only thing I can really think, that the relation, that maybe a big part of that was appeasing American interests, and that's not as much of a factor now, because there's no real clear reason for him to take a moral position. As you say, I don't believe this guy does anything for moral reasons. So what's it about? What changed? What changed that would make him say something like that? That's the only thing I can see.
Yeah. Now, at the end of the day, obviously, we know that calling for an investigation by itself doesn't mean all that much. Matthew Miller promised us several investigations by our Israeli partners, and we've seen nothing from it. But speaking of Israeli partners here, this is from Haaretz. Hundreds of Israeli medics demand to prosecute those behind IDF strike that killed 15 aid workers in Gaza. This is from the Israeli newspaper Haaretz. Around 360 Israeli medical professionals, half of them doctors, signed a letter demanding an investigation into the killing of 15 aid workers in the Gaza Strip about 2.5 weeks ago and their prosecution. Quote, "We are shocked by this grave incident. The killing of rescue and medical personnel on duty is a blatant violation of international warfare laws, an act contrary to human morality," they wrote. "It is inconceivable that such a severe event would go uninvestigated." Really? It's inconceivable? Do you remember where you live, by chance? It's inconceivable to you that this would go uninvestigated? Without a thorough, reliable, and impartial probe, leading to practical conclusions and accountability, they added. "We are committed to medical ethics and believe in the sanctity of life for every person as a supreme value, both in peace and in war." IDF Chief Ayel Zamir ordered the military's investigative mechanism responsible for examining war crimes allegations to probe the killing of aid workers. Since the war began, the mechanism has received information on dozens of incidents suspected to violate wartime laws, yet no Israeli soldiers have been prosecuted for them. Just think of that. Think of, after everything we've seen and dozens of specific incidents reported, not a single Israeli soldier has been prosecuted for a war crime. That is extraordinarily damning in and of itself. But there you have now 360 Israeli medics saying that this is too much for them. Whoever did that needs to be prosecuted because the video evidence is just, it's incontrovertible. It was cold-blooded murder done execution style over the course of a fairly prolonged period of time. And so there is just no getting around that. So whatever Keir Starmer has to say, the Israelis are calling for an investigation. Again, this is just one more example of public opinion just turning on them. Between a few of these segments that we've covered over the past hour or so, the fact that now the knives are out for children's creators because she's getting opinion turned against them. And then obviously, what Tim Pool said, or, according to him, he said, hey, look, in 10 years, support for Israel is going to be very, very small in this country between those on the left and the right who don't want any part of this anymore.
Well, I told you I'm studying ancient civilizations right now, and it was really amazing to me. We think of freedom of speech as being a modern concept. And there was a Chinese advisor who told an emperor who was sending out spies to eavesdrop on what the population was saying and to arrest people who spoke against the emperor. And his advisor said to stop tongues is more dangerous than to dam up a river. Even then, they understood human nature, right? Even then, it was he saw that it's dangerous to suppress speech because it winds up building and building and building. And this is probably the greatest case of that we've seen in modern times, where it's whack-a-mole. They just keep chasing every person and every institution that speaks out against them, and then they go here and then they go there. You can't stop it. It's obvious you're committing a genocide. You're not going to stop people from noticing. You're not going to stop them from speaking about it. And you're never going to convince them that they're anti-Semitic for being horrified at seeing children massacred on a mass scale like this, on a scale we haven't seen since the Holocaust that you continue to hide behind. Also, with those medics, it does show you how much of Israeli society is just in denial, and how could they not be? How else could you live there? You have to be in denial.
Right.
You didn't realize
it's inconceivable.
It's inconceivable. Do you know, as you said, do you know where you live?
Right.
It's very conceivable. They're just, most of them, very early in this crisis, October 8th, there was the protest that we filmed in Times Square. And I got these two women who had been in the IDF just going on about how they're the world's most moral army. And they believe that. How else could you live like this? How could you live with the crimes of Israel if you were not completely brainwashed? Even as they speak out, it's with this naivete about what their culture is. Well, as Israelis, we have to hold these people accountable. You have some people like Ilan Pape, who's booked back here. They don't live in Israel anymore. So how could you?
Right. Exactly. All right. Fat Not So Fat says Trump recession is a beautiful word. Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. In fact, while Russ is going, that gives me a chance to actually do the supporter scroll. So, folks, we're going to take a quick pause to do our supporter shout out here. I was going to do this a bit later, but we'll do it now. If you like what we do here, folks, you could help us do more of it by going to patreon.com/DoDissidents. You can also go to DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals at DoDissidents.locals.com and become a member. Membership is just $5 a month or $50 for the year on locals. If you'd like to sign up for a year pass, you get a lot for the membership. You get your name up in lights here on the show scroll. You also get call-in access to every Q&A session that we do every Sunday night after the main show. Those are held exclusively on Rumble. You also get live stream access to our full-length pre-recorded interviews, as well as 2 full bonus live streams per month just for you guys. You get a film club live stream as well as a content and call-in live stream. So those are all interactive, really fun live streams. You also get emailed to you an ad-free replay of every live stream the day after it airs live on YouTube and Rumble. That's something that the members have been enjoying quite a bit. In case you miss a stream or you come in late and you only catch part of it, you can catch up on what you missed the next day ad-free. It's like getting a private video file pretty much emailed to you. So all that for just $5 a month. Your support is what keeps us going. So that's dudissidents.locals.com. You can also join our Substack or our Patreon, patreon.com/dudissidents. Perks are the same across all of those platforms. Thank you very much for your support. Brad Gilbert says CIA controlled information assets, spinfluencers. Thank you, Brad Gilbert. Appreciate that very much. Okay. There we go. Mrs. says, here's another 10 boys. Thank you. Thank you for the courageous reports. I do wish when discussing anti-Semitic and Arab together, we would remind Arabs are also Semites. That's right. Love you guys. Thanks for the sanity.
Good point.
Good point. Absolutely. Brad Gilbert says, so the IDF is hiring Uncle Jimbo and Ned now. Thank you, Brad Gilbert. Appreciate that. Yes, they're coming right for us. That's right. Landrew, thanks for the $100. Appreciate that, Landrew. Let's have a sound drop in, a cowbell for our friend Landrew here. Landrew says, was it evil to have bought call options on ExxonMobil thinking Iran will make Trump look stupid Saturday, oil $300 a barrel? By the way, the SPX put options. Free Palestine.
I am Landrew. Landrew is dead.
Well,
now we know why Landrew has all those C notes.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. More tariff talk coming up, Landrew. So hopefully we'll get an answer to that in just a couple of minutes. You two go from feeling like my parents, scared of one at 1 minute, then the other the next. Thank you. Then you feel like my kids. You're not meant to have favorites, but 1 minute it's one, next it's the other. Thanks, Feroz Queen. Appreciate that very much. Jenna Tillis says Tim wanted that sweet Israeli digital access and all he got was finger banged by Bibi. Life comes at you fast. Thank you, Jenna Tillis. Appreciate that very much. Vito says my grandson adores Miss Rachel. Has just become one of my heroes. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Yep, I remember. My guys watched Miss Rachel. She's very, very popular.
I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember because I remember seeing her on TV. That's why when I saw her in the news, I'm like, what could she have possibly done to get in trouble? Yeah. Amazing that the exploded body parts of children have become propaganda. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Indeed.
Thank you, Vito.
Thank you, Vito. Appreciate that very much. All right, folks, we got a couple more segments left on the docket, which start right now. So let's go ahead.
Okay, so you know what? Some people think it's kind of weird that Donald Trump told people to buy in the morning and in the afternoon announced lifting those tariffs, sending the stock averages to the moon. Went to the moon, baby. So some of the Democrats are talking about investigating Trump for insider trading. This is Chris Murphy.
Questions about the tariff announcements today. Who benefited and who made money? And this should matter to you too, because this could be an enormous scam. What we know is that about 9:30 today, Trump posts on social media that people should buy. It's a good time to buy. And then 3 hours later, guess what? He announces that there's going to be a 90-day suspension of many of the tariffs. Predictably, the market, which had been crashing, shoots up, and anyone who made investments early today likely made a lot of money. And so the question is, who close to Trump knew that he was going to suspend the tariffs? Which of his Mar-a-Lago friends or his billionaire advisors were able to capitalize on that inside information? Why did Trump send out that post to his supporters earlier in the day? The bottom line is that the chaotic nature of this tariff policy, with Trump's position changing every single hour gives ample opportunity for any individual who has early access to information about the White House's change in position to make boatloads of money, either by investing at the right time or pulling their money out of the market at the right time. This entire White House is one giant grift. Donald Trump and his friends are in power in order to use their access to government to make money. It stinks, and we should get to the bottom of it.
Okay. All right. So the House Committee on Financial Services then quote tweets Donald Trump's "This is a great time to buy." Hours before his 90-day tariff pause announcement, the President of the United States is literally engaging in the world's biggest market manipulation scheme. So here from our friends at Hotspot there, they demonstrate here on the chart. All right, so if you look at the bottom there, you can see there's a small spike before the announcement and then the bigger spike when the public gets wind. So just before Trump posted buy on Truth Social, some group of people opened big U.S. stock market call options and got a 20-minute head start. Now, that's pretty incontrovertible proof that you had insider trading. Why would you have a spike like that? Now, that does not mean, we covered earlier what the reasoning was behind changing the tariff policy. I don't think this was the plan all along. I think there were people who knew he was going to do this who decided to cash in. And who's going to hold them accountable with this crew, right? NASDAQ call volume spiked minutes before the 90-day tariff pause was announced. Not a good look at all. Somebody asked, why is this bad? I don't understand. Someone knew and traded in front of the news. And again, yeah, why would you have that spike right before the announcement? What would account for that? Same with the spy calls. You got this big spike on the spy calls right before the announcement.
You also seem to have the same kind of minor spike ahead of the tweet there too, right? There's that small
and then you
spike.
And then you got the public.
Right, because the announcement was the announcement that the tariffs are paused.
Well, that's where you get the big spike.
Right.
The little spike is the insider trading.
That's the tweet, right.
Right. We just witnessed the biggest financial crime in history. Donald Trump told followers to buy DJT on his own app, then paused tariffs, spiking his stock. So this is the Truth Social stock he's talking about. DJT went from $16 to nearly $22 in hours. That's insider trading. Martha Stewart went to prison for less. And this is the timeline. 9:35, Truth Social stock trading at 16. 9:37, President posts buy DJT. 9:40, the stock jumps to 18. Later that day, after his announcement, the stock peaks near 22. Now remember, Trump has not divested from his holdings. He personally profits from this. If you brought 10,000 shares at 16 and sold them by 433, you would have made $60,000, a 22% return on investment after 7 hours. That's textbook insider trading. Even more suspicious, at 9:35, there were just 3,300 trades of DJT stock. By 9:40, that number exploded to 134,000 trades. This wasn't just a tip. It was a signal to wealthy insiders to execute the scam. Okay. So here's our illustrious president in the Oval Office bragging about how much money his billionaire friends made off his announcement.
This is Charles Schwab. It's not just a company, it's actually an individual. And he made $2.5 billion today, and he made $900 million. That's not bad. He's in financials. I've always been following.
That's Charles Schwab, who was in the Oval Office, who supposedly was one of the people who persuaded him to do this. He made $900 million there. He's in financials. Yeah. Okay. Michael Tracy. Can't get over how the little week-long Main Street versus Wall Street rhetorical tangent culminated yesterday with Charles Schwab in the White House and Trump merrily relaying that he made $2.5 billion off administration-induced market fluctuations. Nobody does snark like Michael Tracy.
Yeah.
So Adam Schiff, I'm writing to the White House to demand who knew in advance that the president was going to once again flip-flop on tariffs, and are people cashing in? All right, so that video has been going around, but we already got the gist of it. We have some exclusive footage of Adam Schiff confronting Donald Trump in the Oval Office about insider trading. Here we go.
How can you close me up? On what ground?
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, Adam, that was where you're only going to see that here. So yes, Adam Schiff is shocked to find out that gambling is going on in the casino. Apparently, he's never heard of someone named Nancy Pelosi. Strangely, given that she was Speaker of the House for quite some time. Let's hear a little bit about Nancy Pelosi and insider trading.
Breaking news. Congressmember Nancy Pelosi is up 23% on her NVIDIA call options, and NVIDIA stock just hit all-time highs. And Nancy Pelosi's NVIDIA call options have made her nearly $500,000 in under 2 months, more than double her annual salary of $223,000. Follow us on Twitter and track Congressmembers' trades at unusualwhales.com.
And Unusual Whales is a good site to track if you want this kind of news. Let's see what Pelosi said when they asked her about stopping members of Congress from trading.
Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to the second one. We have a responsibility to report in the stock, on the stock, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review, but if people aren't reporting, they should be.
Why should they be banned?
Because this is a free market and people, we're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So
Should be able to participate.
Yeah. So the Democrats are very much Frenchy in Casablanca with their shock and horror at this insider trading, as you could see from the charts. And again, I don't think this was the plan all along, but I think people around Trump certainly took advantage of it. And it seems with his encouragement, given his bragging about how much money they made off of that stock fluctuation, off of his announcements. But for the Democrats to run around like they're shocked and horrified that there's insider trading going on. With Nancy Pelosi, the estimates range from 150 to 250 million that she's made since she's been in Congress. The way they work the scam is her husband is a trader. He does the trades. She gives them the information. Anyone who's going to say, well, that's just normal trading. Nancy Pelosi beats all of the best money managers in the world every single year. Warren Buffett is a piker compared to Nancy Pelosi's returns. It is mathematically impossible that she is not trading on insider information. And it's not just her. She's just one of the most glaring examples. So yes, clearly inside trading went on around these announcements. Clearly no one is going to hold these people accountable, but the Democrats certainly do not have any moral authority to feign shock and outrage at that kind of behavior.
Yeah, no, I mean, that much is obvious. I think both of those things are obvious, as you said. Which is why, those accusations, I won't say they ring hollow, but it is tough to go there as a party, as a line of attack. I mean, talk about throwing stones from a glass house, right? They are better off just sticking with the message that, Trump basically was on course to tank the markets, drain people's retirement, and then got cold feet when it became obvious that the course he chose was going to be disastrous, because that is
Right.
what happened.
Right.
For all
Yeah.
all of this cope about art of the deal and how he knew this was going to
Right.
happen all along. That's just nonsense. There's too many videos and tweets of Donald Trump promising not to do what he did, number one,
Right.
but also his surrogates, his cabinet members arguing that it was in the best
Elon
interest of
having a
America to do
meltdown.
it. Well, Elon having a meltdown, that whole spat with Navarro, and then just, informal surrogates like Batyar Ungar Sargon coming out here talking about how this is class war on behalf of the worker. Well, what do you have to say now? What do you have to say now? It's crazy. But look, these people are all very short-term thinkers. Our whole economic philosophy is short-term thinking. It's all about quarterly numbers, right? So, of course, the people who are most invested in the market think every single day this is how they think. How do I make a buck today? Well, of course.
It's a
obviously.
racetrack.
Right, it's a racetrack. So, of course, when it tanks, they're already thinking, hey, how can we make this work to our advantage? You saw that bump as Hotspot put out. If that was 20 minutes before the tweet came out, that tells you some people in the inner circle had advanced knowledge. And so there's almost no question in my mind that some of that took place. Yeah.
Of course. But there will be no investigation under this government, which, again, I don't want to make it a partisan thing. That's why I threw that in. You wouldn't have an investigation if that happened under Biden either.
I'm sure there are Democrats and Democrat donors implicated in that insider trading, just as there are Trump allies.
That's probably true.
Yep. All right, Brits man, thanks for the $1.99. Appreciate that. Russ moved to Kansas City. I heard Zach needs a roommate. Ha, good one. I not only accuse Ms. Rachel of anti-Semitism, but I believe she's part of the commie Sesame Street cartel pushing our kids to share and learn about other cultures. Yes, thank you, Kids Corner. Appreciate that. 007 Angelo says, don't be fooled. Starmer only wants to be probed by Netanyahu, just like Trump was the other day. All those clowns are the most disgusting POS on the planet. They'll only get VIP treatment in hell. Thank you. Fertile Green says, Russ, have you heard of The Dawn of Everything? Ties into what you're reading now. Have you read The Dawn of Everything?
No.
All right. We got Jay Klein. Thanks for the $10. Says 1, establish tariffs. 2, crash the market. 3, retract the tariffs, but temporarily. 4, market comes back. 5, tell Fed to lower interest rates or you'll return the tariffs. Thank you, Jay Klein. Appreciate that very much. All right, let's go to our final segment of the day, everybody. Thanks for being here. We got one more song.
One more song. Okay, so there's been a lot of confusion about why Donald Trump and his team are doing what they're doing. And we've contended the entire time it's a mistake to think these people are just shooting from the hip. George Soros's evil minion is the Treasury Secretary. And whatever you might think about his morals and his motives, he's not a stupid man, the man who crashed the British pound. So what are they thinking? From everything that I've researched, what the very smart people are saying is this is about weakening the dollar in order to make our exports more attractive, while at the same time not losing our reserve currency status. So Yanis Varoufakis did a very good article about this even before the tariffs were actually imposed. And it's in line with what a lot of other people are saying. Donald Trump's economic master plan, he's plotting an anti-Nixon shock. So why does the president believe America has been dealt a bad deal? His chief complaint is that dollar supremacy may confer huge powers on America's government and ruling class, but ultimately, foreigners are using it in ways that guarantee U.S. decline. So what most consider to be America's exorbitant privilege, meaning that we're the reserve currency, he sees as its exorbitant burden. Trump has been lamenting the decline of U.S. manufacturing for decades. Quote, if you don't have steel, you don't have a country, unquote. But why blame this on the dollar's global role? Because, Trump answers, foreign central banks do not let the dollar adjust downwards to the right level at which U.S. exports recover and imports are restrained. It is not that foreign central bankers are conspiring against America. It is just that the dollar is the only safe international reserve they can get their hands on. It is only natural for European and Asian central banks to hoard the dollars that flow to Europe and Asia when Americans import things. By not swapping their stash of dollars for their own currencies, the European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, the People's Bank of China, and the Bank of England suppress the demand for and thus the value of their own currencies. This helps their own exporters boost their sales to America and earn even more dollars. In a never-ending circle, these fresh dollars accumulate in the coffers of the foreign central bankers who, to gain interest safely, use them to buy U.S. government debt. But the dollar's hegemonic status also underpins American exceptionalism, as Trump knows and appreciates. Foreign central banks' purchases of U.S. treasuries enable the U.S. government to run deficits and pay for an oversized military that would bankrupt any other country. And by being the linchpin of international payments, the hegemonic dollar enables the president to exercise the modern day equivalent of gunboat diplomacy, to sanction at will any person or government. This is not enough in Trump's eyes to offset the suffering of American producers who are undercut by foreigners whose central bankers exploit a service, dollar reserves. America provides them for free to keep the dollar overvalued. For Trump, America is undermining itself for the glory of geopolitical power and the opportunity to accumulate other people's profits. These imported riches benefit Wall Street and realtors, but only at the expense of the people who elected him twice, Americans in the heartlands who produce the manly goods, such as steel and automobiles, that a nation needs to remain viable. When U.S. deficits exceed some threshold, foreigners will panic. They will sell their dollar-denominated assets and find some other currency to hoard. Americans will be left amid international chaos with a wrecked manufacturing sector, derelict financial markets, and an insolvent government. This nightmare scenario has convinced Trump that he is on a mission to save America, that he has a duty to usher in a new international order, and that's the gist of his plan. To effect in 2025 a decisive anti-Nixon shock, a global shock that cancels out the work of his predecessor by terminating the Bretton Woods system in 1971, which spearheaded the era of financialization. Okay, so before we move on to the video, to sum that up, okay, so because everybody's hoarding dollars in their own treasuries, that keeps the demand for the dollar high, makes it very hard for our exports to be competitive. However, that money comes back to the United States in the form of investment and financialization, i.e., buying our treasury bills, which is why we are able to run up the kinds of deficits that we can. America is living far beyond its means. Now, if you connect this with what Doge is doing, where these guys want to maintain their tax cuts, but if you're thinking like this, we want to change the world economic system in such a way that they're not going to be running these trade surpluses with the United States anymore. So they're not going to be buying our treasuries. So we're not going to be able to afford to run these deficits. Well, then what do you have to do? You have to cut spending. And if you are oligarchs who are absolutely committed to giving an enormous tax cut to your own class, those cuts have to be really draconian and really deep. You have to convince the population that 250-year-olds are getting Social Security, right? so that you can get them to let you start messing with that system, because this money is not going to support that deficit anymore. Now, in terms of his overall analysis, or his analysis as Varoufakis interprets it here, which I think is correct, eventually the jig's going to be up, right? Yeah, I think that's right. Eventually the deficits are going to get too high. They turn around, they stop buying those treasuries, and you're going to face that day of reckoning. Now, I'm coming from a left Keynesian perspective. The way to deal with it would be to take what Biden started to do with Build Back Better and make it 10 times bigger and really rebuild the manufacturing base of the country, and then maybe consider doing tariffs and also raise taxes on the wealthy to pay for it. These are committed Reaganomics, trickle-down economics. Besant, in his interview with Tucker, invoked Reagan no less than 3 times, talked about how people didn't think trickle-down economics was going to work, but to his mind it did, which would be news to most people in the country whose towns were hollowed out by Reaganomics and the neoliberalism that it ushered in. But this is how these people think. They don't want the government doing anything, and they want enormous tax cuts for the rich. So this is really a very Reagan-esque vision of how you would rebuild manufacturing. Just throw up tariffs and the free market will do it. Free market will do it. The government doesn't have to do anything. That having been said, I think their basic analysis is right. I think their approach is an approach that's going to accelerate the creation of a feudal society, which I think we're already rushing headlong into. So now, of the videos I looked at, the best summation of what it looks like is their ultimate plan here came from a channel called Money and Macro. So you can check out this video there, why Trump's tariff chaos actually makes sense, big picture. Do you want to say anything before I throw it up?
Nope. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So this is, he talks about how they're really trying to recreate the Bretton Woods system where countries will peg their currency to the dollar, while there will be another world system that's more connected to BRICS.
The team believes that the current international order is no longer in the best interest of the American people. They have already told us that the current tariff chaos is just a means to create negotiating leverage. They have already told us that they aim to use reciprocal tariffs.
So you can see here, he thinks they're trying to divide the world up this way into these baskets
to even the playing field for red and yellow countries, and they have hinted that if a currency deal can be made, tariffs can be much lower. And yeah, I do believe that if enough countries join the new MAGA world order as green countries that peg their currency to the US dollar, this does indeed mean that Trump can have his weaker dollar while maintaining its status as a reserve currency. This could help reindustrialize the US, at least to a certain extent in theory. But of course, all of this depends on the US making it attractive enough for countries to become a green country in the new MAGA international order. This, I believe, is the real problem with the plans of people like Besant and Miran. They're clearly smart people, they have studied history extensively, but to voluntarily commit to raising your currency's value compared to the dollar, to continue to rely on US military protection, but now to pay for it, that essentially makes you a vassal state, subordinate to a great power. To submit yourself to the US in such a way, that requires an enormous amount of trust. Trust that the US had plenty of when countries signed the Bretton Woods Agreement, or when they went along with Reagan's Plaza Accord in 1985. But if you tear up a trade agreement that you yourself signed, like the one with Canada and Mexico, or if you threaten to annex your closest ally or the territory controlled by one of your most loyal European allies, then how can you expect countries to ever want to join your new MAGA economic and security order? And if no one actually joins your new economic order, then you do have to choose. Either you give up your reserve currency status and the wealth and power that comes with it, or you keep the dollar and its power and accept that you need to rely on Mexican, European and Japanese manufacturing capabilities.
All right. So I think that is a pretty good summation. I think that's pretty much what's going on here, with maybe some variations in the details. He's basing his analysis on reading what Besant has said that he wants, and other economic advisors. He's read their papers, and that's what he came up with. And it matches pretty closely what Varoufakis has come up with. I think they're probably right. You know, there's talk about this Mar-a-Lago Accord that they're working towards. The basic premise that the purpose of the tariffs is to shake everybody up, to make them open to having this negotiation. That seems to be the case. As we see this develop since yesterday, looks like part of the plan is to economically isolate China, to force China into a corner, and to intimidate other countries into not helping China, not aligning with China, not bailing them out, not creating an alternative bloc. I think what he says there about the flaw in the plan being soft power, I think that's true. I think a big part of this plan is when you force people into a position where you're saying you got to be my bitch or else, their reactions are going to be unpredictable. When people don't like you, they don't really want to be part of what you represent. You don't know how much their national pride is going to kick in, and how much they may decide, you know what, we'll take the pain to get away from this crazy bastard. I think that is a big flaw in this equation. But is this what they're thinking? The dollar is going to collapse eventually. So what do you do when you're in a game that you're bound to lose? Change the rules. They're trying to change the rules of the game by reestablishing a dollar zone, which is what was established with Bretton Woods. That was the Nixon shock. He took the dollar off the gold standard, blew up the dollar zone, turned the dollar into fiat currency that can be manipulated by the Fed.
See, I learned something today.
There you go.
That's a new one.
Yeah, it's a new one. I added that for today. Well, that'll come in handy. That'll come in handy. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's probably right. I think that's probably right. But I also, look, what it comes back to for me every time when we talk about this is it's simply too late. It's just too late. It's too late in more than one way. It's too late in terms of too much manufacturing is already left. Our population has already adapted, whether we liked it or not, to a sort of post-industrial economic space. And I don't celebrate that. I don't say that to say we should have. I just say that as an observation of reality. But it's also too late in the macro sense, in the global sense. We have burned the trust of the world too much for this. And why would they box China out if they felt there was some other way? Who could want us as a partner over them at this point? Who? I mean, so to me, it's too late for this. It's too late for this.
They're betting they won't have a choice.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the gamble they're taking. That they're going to be so desperate, they're going to have to deal with us.
I think that assumes that, we already talked about in the last segment we did about China, to assume that China is the mirror image of the U.S., right? Now there's more of a drastic contrast there between America and China, and America and, most of the EU countries. But how much closer to us are they than to them, right? What kind of bargain are they willing to make? I don't think we have a very strong hand. I really don't. I think, and I think a lot of this accelerated in a massive way under Joe Biden. I think Biden's presidency really exposed
sanctioning Russia was a big mistake.
Well, sanctioning Russia. Well, yes. I mean, the Russia-Ukraine war in general, the whole way that was handled, massive mistake. Massive mistake. A giant act of hubris without any of the chest pounding that comes with Donald Trump. Like, if you're going to act that way, you at least have to project a certain confidence in your path forward. But Biden, acted with all the bravado of Trump on a policy level, but with none of the conviction to back it up. And I think that really exposed the inevitable downward trajectory of the empire, which is, of course, a disincentive to entangle yourselves with us in this way. I mean, you're really forcing a major decision on the part of a lot of these countries. And, I think Trump is a chauvinist. I think that's probably, as Tusker said way back when, that's probably why ultimately the deep state finds him tolerable, which is that he is an American chauvinist. He believes in the hegemonic power of the United States. He believes it is inevitable. He believes to a certain extent that we are chosen by God to have this power. That's the way he's acting, because I don't see how you can have this kind of confidence to force a choice like this between these two superpowers and not think that, you know what, given the way things have worked out since Bretton Woods, maybe we'll try something different. Maybe it's time to try something. Maybe it's time to turn the page. By creating a crisis, you're also creating an opportunity for people to just turn the page. And from my perspective, why the hell wouldn't they? Now, not everybody thinks like me, but I don't think our hand is very strong. I really don't.
Trump is relying on greed. He's relying on the idea that these countries will not be willing to make the sacrifices necessary to wean themselves off American consumer spending.
This is what I mean. Is France as big a pig?
He could be right. He could be right.
But this is what I
would
mean.
not dismiss that. What is described in the video of them being willing to become total vassal states to a dollar zone, that may be pushing it too far. Will they be willing to make certain trade and security agreements? And according to what they're saying now, Trump doesn't want to make one agreement with everybody. He wants to deal with them all individually. Maybe. You got to remember, these leaders have to think about social instability too. How much poverty before their people overthrow the government? Some of them do not have the kind of stability to weather that.
Well, of course. And this speaks to what I was saying before. Are the Germans as greedy as the Chinese? Are the Germans, greedier than the Chinese? Yeah. Are they as greedy as we are? I don't think so. Force that choice amongst one country after the other.
Well, that's what they're doing.
And we'll see. It's 90 days before these supposedly come back. I think we showed. I think they handled this horribly. I think they showed our hand. They exposed our weaknesses. They basically exposed that at the end of the day, we're going to have to blink because we couldn't withstand 6 days.
We can't go through with it.
We couldn't withstand 6 days of Dave Portnoy bitching on Twitter, and we're gonna force this kind of showdown. Yeah, no, I think he fucked this up. I think he fucked it up pretty badly. I could be wrong. I'm not an economist, that's for sure. That's an understatement. But my read of this is that they tried this. They got cold feet. They were scared out of it. And now they have to do some kind of damage control over the course of these next 90 days to make it look like they didn't fuck up as bad as they did while minimizing the impact of whatever they end up trying to arrange somehow with all of these countries I guess in what will be a piecemeal fashion.
Well, and I think some of the damage is already done. We're already seeing de-dollarization partly because of Biden sanctioning Russia. I've made this comparison before. Anyone who's a Game of Thrones fan, in the Game of Thrones world, you have the Iron Bank, and nobody messes with the Iron Bank. And in exchange, the Iron Bank doesn't take sides. That's the financier in that world. Nobody defaults on the Iron Bank. Everybody maintains a relationship with the Iron Bank. If you have the world's reserve currency, no matter what other wars you might be fighting, you have got to be the Iron Bank when it comes to how you manage that responsibility and that position of trust.
That's what I mean. When
we sanctioned Russia,
yeah,
we blew up our status as the trusted iron bank. Nobody trusts us to be the reserve currency anymore. And that's part of why you saw Japan immediately pulling out of U.S. treasuries. That's not China. That was Japan. Nobody, you're not putting that back together. You're already seeing de-dollarization. That's only going to continue. What Trump's trying to do here, based on some what I think is good analysis, is force them to stay on the dollar. And you make good points. Are they going to do that, or are they just going to say, fuck it, let's get away from this crazy bastard and we'll weather it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I haven't even mentioned the saber rattling with Iran yet. What? So if we start World War III, then we're going to be, okay, whoever's not with us is going to get fucked. Like, come on. Like, what is in it for these people? Is China going out there trying to fucking blow the world up? No. Are they gonna? Are they gonna demand?
Remember, the Europeans are mad that the Chinese backed Russia's play in Ukraine too.
Well, who's coming out on top of that? This is what I mean. Like, we don't have a hand to play here. I don't see us having a very strong hand, and I think we weakened it over the course of this past week or so. We didn't strengthen it.
I agree.
All right. What do we got here? Jay, thanks for the 199. USS Liberty, JFK, Larry Silverstein on 9/11, Iraq War. All violence is wrong. Jewish supremacy is wrong. Thank you, Jay. It is way too late for the USA, says Kuznetsky Basane. Appreciate that. Texas Grown, thanks for the $10. They are severely divided right now, nearing a civil war, according to Haaretz. Yeah, well, yes, there is a lot of instability there. That's why we say it's not going to be long for Israel, I don't think. Kuznetsky Basane, way too many wars, way too many genocides. Yep. Brad, the Chinese have a word for it. Yes, chrysotunity. Thank you very much for that, Brad. Appreciate that. All right. What do we got? $1 Million Trooper. Dave always approached the stock market as a degenerate gambler, so I take his antics with a grain of salt. He's pretty funny when he's not defending and deporting pro-Palestinian protesters. Oh, is he for that too?
There's another one.
Surprise. Starmer's full of shit, and the only probing he wants is when Netanyahu bends him over. Thank you, 007 Angelo. Appreciate that. All right, we got a couple more here. 007 Angelo again. Will MAGA admit that their wealthy deity couldn't be bought? Never removed the for sale sign off his ass. Miriam Adelson bought him at wholesale. We live in clown world. We love you guys and your honesty. Thank you, 007 Angelo. Appreciate that very, very much. Furrow Squeen, Fire Dancer. Hey, Furrow Squeen. Says, always been puzzled as to what Russell meant by English food. Never thought we had it too bad until I just realized what I cooked myself. Just had fridge tapas, i.e. whatever's left in a bowl. There you go. All righty, folks, that is our show. Thanks very much for being here. I'll see you guys, some of you guys, hopefully in about an hour on the Homeless Leftover on Rumble. I'm doing a guest appearance later in the afternoon, but we will be back on this channel this Sunday at 7 p.m. Thank you guys very much for being here today. Smash that like button on the way out. Smash that subscribe button on the way out, that follow button over on Rumble. And we will see you in a few days, Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern for the main broadcast on all of our channels. Until then, thanks very much for spending the afternoon with us. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.